Up all night global sports entertainment for stable hands, security guards, and people who missed the last train home and woke up in the park getting spooned by a Scottish tramp.
You can see the damn patch.
The two mics, Parry and Graham on Talk Sport.
It's alright, I'm not gonna hurt you.
You know, like I like tin salad. Because tin salmon. Tin salmon's the best salmon, right? Do you know what people do?
Tin salmon's the best salmon.
Tin salmon is the best salmon. It's the freshest salmon you can get.
What about fresh salmon?
Well, yeah, well, apart from that. And believe it or not, people get tin salmon, they chuck it into a glass bowl, and then they pour mayonnaise all over it and stir it up so that you weaken the salmon when you put it in sandwiches. It's a country.
Is it?
I don't like mayonnaise in my salmon. You know when they fatten up geese for foie gras?
Well, for what?
What's it? Foie... What are you laughing at again?
Foie. Sounds like the mating call of a
what is it then?
Foie gras. Foie gras.
Foie gras. Okay, yeah, okay. Foie gras.
Foie gras. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. It's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Why are you speaking in tongues?
I don't know, really. What does buenas noches mean, by the way? Is that it's good morning, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, good day. Well, actually, good night, isn't it, buenas noches?
OK, in that case...
good night is OK.
Is it? No, it's not really.
Buenos dias, I think. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, that's it.
Buenos dias. Yeah, I'm glad we've got off on the right foot.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, no, I mean, yeah, thanks very much, Mike. It's great to be here with you again. Full of frustration, I'm afraid. Full of simmering, boiling anger and frustration.
It's been that kind of week for you, hasn't it?
Well, should Boris Johnson be charged with urban vandalism? That's what I want to know.
Well, you started on Boris Johnson last night, so you're not still upset with him,
I certainly am, because I tell you what, I was talking about the part of London we use, which is mostly East London, right? You know, trying to get in and out.
South London as well.
Today, and by the way, there's lots of sport to talk about.
There is.
The cricket, the golf.
The cricket, the golf, some football transfers to get into.
And I want to pay tribute to a former Liverpool player called Brian Hall, who sadly died.
Yeah, funnily enough, we were just talking about that era of Liverpool, weren't we, last night?
Unbelievable, yeah, and we'll get onto that in a minute. But the Boris Johnson thing is destroying my life, right? I mean, today, for instance, I was working over in the west side of London, OK?
Right, OK.
No, I wasn't. I was working in the east side of London, but I had to get to the west side of London, OK?
Not easy to do unless you use the tube, of course.
Use the tube, it's fine. But I was over in a studio near Tower Bridge, and for the benefit of our millions of listeners who are lucky enough not to have to live in London or anywhere near London...
And they probably don't want to hear you going on about London traffic every single night.
They do, because it's coming to their town soon.
No, it isn't.
Whatever happens here comes to their town soon. They will have a mad nutter mayor like we've got here who will want to dig up all the roads and turn them into supercycle highways for people who use them for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening.
There must be more to it than that.
And who, for the rest of the day, remains completely empty of any traffic whatsoever.
There must be much more to it than that. It can't just be about making a super highway for bicycles. It must be about something else, because they're redoing, it seems like, every single road in the city.
Anyway, to describe it to our listeners, you've all heard of the Tower of London, you all know Tower Bridge, it's an iconic picture of a big bridge that goes across the River Thames, OK? I had to get from there to the West End, right, for a lunch appointment, OK? So I get in a black cab. It takes 40 minutes because you go down a road called Lower Thames Street. Right. And the reason it's called Lower Thames Street is it runs down the side of the Thames, right?
Right.
And to get down to the House of Commons...
And it's always really, really congested anyway.
Yeah, it is. To get down to the House of Commons, where you turn right and then you sort of turn left and then you go up into Mayfair and that kind of stuff, OK?
Right.
It took 40 minutes.
Why didn't you just go on the tube, though? That would have been much quicker.
I didn't go on the tube because I was with a colleague. We had things to talk about and the colleague wasn't feeling too good.
OK.
And didn't want to be, running them down tube escalators and that kind of stuff. So we got in the cab,
Fair enough.
No problem at all. 40 minutes, 35 quid's worth of taxi for a journey that should take 10 minutes and £12.
35 quid's amazing, isn't it, for that?
It's just ridiculous.
I mean, what is it, 2 or 3 miles, maybe?
Something like that. But all the way down Lower Thames Street, all you've got are roadworks either side.
Yeah.
And the roads are being painted green for the supercycle highway. What is going on? The modern economy of a modern city cannot exist on people on bikes.
Well, how much longer is it going to... I was saying to you yesterday, maybe this is his plan, that when he steps away from the job and goes into the House of Commons full time as an MP, he'll just hand this kind of complete and utter disaster to somebody who comes in who'll take about 5 years to fix it all up.
Well, what's going to happen is, eventually we'll get a mayor or a prime minister who doesn't like cyclists, so he'll turn it all back into roads again. Right. It's bound to happen. It's going to happen eventually. That's what politicians do. They just waste billions of pounds of money. But what really worries me is that the taxi driver I was speaking to today and former taxi drivers have all said, we proposed when they heard about it, because they're the main victims of this terrible chaos. They have to sit in cabs all day. They don't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly, and they can't make as much money.
Exactly. They put a proposal to the mayor and to their local politicians. Could we just have it, please, on a trial basis for 3 months, just by using temporary fences to see whether it works or not, and then can we have another assessment? Oh, no, we're going ahead with it. We're not trialling it at all. We're going ahead with it. It is utter chaos. London is grinding to a halt.
Where's all the money coming from as well?
I've no idea. I suppose from people like me, mugs like me, who pay council tax in London, you know?
Right.
It's absolutely unbelievable. And it's going to destroy London. We haven't got a third runway yet at Heathrow, so people will stop coming to London from abroad. People in this country will not want to go to London because you can't move around in it.
But I find it amazing there are so many cars in London because they're all paying this ridiculous congestion charge as well, because that's supposed to be keeping half the cars out.
That's £14 a day.
Right,
but there's more cars in London than there ever used to be, because when an economy grows and business gets better, people have to move around.
They do.
That's the whole idea of an economy.
But you should go by tube, though, because if you did go by tube, you wouldn't be quite so het up. You wouldn't come in here every night as if Boris Johnson's got some personal vendetta against you.
I agree, but the thing is, things do have to be taken by car. Parcels, packages, all that kind of stuff. They can't move around.
Yeah, but not everything has to be taken by car. And if you'd gone on the tube, you'd have been much happier. You'd have been more serene. You'd have had more rest. You wouldn't be so worked up. I'm getting worried about it.
I am delighted that Boris Johnson was shown up in the House of Commons this week by the Home Secretary, Theresa May, for blundering into some ridiculous deal to buy water cannons, which don't work.
Right. And which you now can't use.
Right. Waste of money, £218,000. Whose money was that? Whose money was the £218,000?
Well, that was our money as well, presumably.
Yeah, it was our money as well. And delighted to see the cartoons now where Theresa May is driving around in one of these water cannons.
I think we should all get a go in them, basically, since we've paid for them. Should we be allowed to take them up to Brands Hatch or something? Spraying
the water into Boris Johnson's hair. Yeah. And I was also delighted that my friend Kay Burley on Sky News the other day, when she was interviewing Boris Johnson about, this disastrous policy with the water cannon and all that, she tried to have a laugh with him and said, well, you can always use it to wash that mop of hair of yours. He didn't find it very funny.
Didn't he?
No.
No, well, he doesn't like being outsmarted, does he?
No, absolutely.
Can we stop talking about Boris Johnson now?
Yeah, OK, let's stop talking about him.
I'm seriously worried that you're getting a bit obsessed with
I think honestly, I'm not joking, I think some ombudsman should come in and have a look at the destruction of London, because he's wreaked more destruction on London than Kaiser builded in the First World War, OK?
He certainly seems to be determined to make it look like a sort of building site and a load of rubble.
I wonder whether he should be charged with urban vandalism, destruction of a great city. I mean, I won't talk about it again.
Okay.
I won't talk about it again, but I mean, it is getting my goat.
Well, after tonight, you can have a bit of a rest from it, because you won't have to come into London until Monday, will you? So you can take it easy and you can actually take a chill pill. And I've got some good news for you just to kick the show off with, because there's a tweet here from James, who's just had a baby, right? And he says, this is my new son, named after my favourite presenter, Parry Michael Milner.
Eh?
Parry Michael Milner, that's what he's calling him.
What, his first name's going to be Parry?
He's going to call him Parry Michael Milner.
Good God.
What do you make of that? You look quite shocked.
Well, I'm quite shocked.
Isn't that nice?
Well, it's very nice indeed. Thank you very much indeed. I feel humbled. That's the first time I've ever come across anybody with the Christian name Parry.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you very much indeed. That might start a trend.
It might do, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know when you see these charts sometimes, like, oh, what's the favourite man's name, woman's name?
Parry will enter the top 10 for the first time.
Parry might, because, for instance, in the era of Kylie Minogue, Kylie became very popular. Yeah. In the era of Justin Bieber, Justin became very popular.
It did. Yeah.
So maybe the Parry will...
Maybe it will start.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, if I rename myself Christian name Parry, I'd be Parry.
You would be Parry, and that would sound like some kind of torture, wouldn't it? Wouldn't be good at all. Now, we've got lots of golf to talk about. We've got Bill Fields coming up in a little while, who's a former golfer, and he's going to tell us what he thinks of the first day at St Andrews. What about the cricket? Because I believe the Porky jinx is starting to kick in.
No, it's not.
You were feeling very confident yesterday before the second test got underway.
Yes.
And it's looking pretty miserable, isn't it? It's looking pretty awful.
Well, it's one day. It's one day. Why do you have such defeatist tendencies?
Well, it's not just one day, and it's one wicket as well.
It's one day out of 6 that have been played so far in this Test series, right?
Yeah, 337 for one.
Yeah, they're good. That's good. And by the way,
very good.
The stat I heard earlier, just to contradict what I heard a couple of hours ago, is that one wicket taken on the first day of a Lord's Test, last time that happened was 2 centuries ago, apparently.
What are you saying, that normally no wickets are taken?
No, normally it's more than one.
Oh, I see.
The last time only one was taken, I think Jay said it was the think he said it was about 50s. Something like
Could
that.
have been.
I read.
This was a record-breaking.
I read it was in the
1870s
1870s or something, but it's probably a completely different statistic. It's about the time it was taken or something like that.
Well, this partnership with Chris Rogers and Steve Smith was 259, broke an 85-year record for Australia's second wicket at Lords, which is not bad at all, is it? And I can't really see England coming back from this. Can you?
Yes, I can. Of course I can. Yeah, of course I can. I don't have defeatist tendencies like you.
Yeah, but I think it's the Porky jinx because it's the one thing that that hasn't yet kind of finished up. And so far, I mean, Jordan Spieth, who you said can't possibly win the Open, is only a couple of shots off the lead. He's looking pretty good. So,
he's looking all right. Why does Paul Lawrie only do it on that course? He won it on that course, didn't he?
I'm not sure if he did. Did he not win it at Carnoustie?
He won it wherever the French guy was standing one-legged.
I think it was Carnoustie.
Was it? Yeah, OK. Well, it's Scotland anyway.
It is Scotland,
and he's a Scotsman, so perhaps he only feels at home in Scotland. But as most of the world's best golf... By the way, I can't believe that Turnberry is now called Trump Turnberry.
I know. He's changed the name.
I just can't believe it. I mean, if that man said, well, I've invested in golf courses in Scotland to preserve their identity and to cherish, the greatness of it, and then he renames one of the world's greatest golf courses.
Well, he's going to change it, though. He's going to redesign it, which I don't really feel very comfortable about.
But to start off with, to call it Trump Turnberry, I mean, good God.
I know.
That's an act of labelling vandalism. You can't call Turnberry Trump Turnberry. It's outrageous.
He might as well just call it Trumpbury or something,
Trumpbury, that's right. And you get an image of this, this bloated face.
You see the time, by the way.
Floppy-haired American bankrupt billionaire, if you see what I mean. Because he consistently goes bust and then becomes a billionaire, doesn't he? And he goes, call Trump Tower, because it's a big, gaudy gold building in Manhattan. But do not call Turnberry Trump Turnberry. I utterly refuse to refer to it as Trump Turnberry.
I'm not going to do that either. Looking to the light for a minute, though, I can see you're very worked up again. We are the two mics, and there's loads more coming up. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. It's Porky Quiz night, of course, and the subject tonight is Newcastle. And
Sorry, do you mean Newcastle?
Newcastle, yeah. And I'm told by the independent quizmasters that they actually had to go and find a real Newcastle expert to come up with some of the questions.
Good.
They are very authentic Newcastle questions. So we'll be doing that a little bit later on. We'll be talking to Sandra Lee as well, who's going to be back for the first time in a while down under, telling us how much gloating is going on because of England's rather unfortunate day at Lords yesterday.
Hang on. What about the gloating that was going on when we beat them in the first test? That was gloating on our behalf.
Well, that was gloating here, yeah.
Well,
so the gloating has gone very quiet, hasn't it? Because obviously, as we know, Test cricket can change just day by day. So it's not a terrible disaster, but it's not very encouraging, is it? I'd have to say that.
Sandra's a lovely lady, but there'll be a bit of gloating from this side to that.
Well, we'll see what you can actually gloat about.
A bit of northern hemisphere to southern.
So did you spend a lot of time trying to traverse London, or did you actually manage to watch any of the cricket or the golf at the same time?
Oh, I'm always constantly in touch with anything that goes on, Mike. Nothing passes me. Okay?
I know that.
Nothing passes me by. For instance, if I happen to be in a restaurant and I'm talking to people over lunch and all that, I always make sure I'm positioned so I've got a direct line to the screen in the restaurant.
Well, not every restaurant's got a television now, has it?
They have the ones I go to.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you go to a pub for lunch, that's
No, I go to a pub lunch. I go to a place where I know I can be kept in touch and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, listen, the cricket, right? Do you know what I love most about the cricket?
What do you love most about the cricket?
The crowd.
The what?
The crowd at Lords. I love the crowd at Lords. Now, do you see the pictures of them all lined up along the wall outside the ground this morning at 6:30?
Yeah, waiting to get a decent view.
Some of these guys are clearly, very well-to-do businessmen who've taken a couple of days off to go and watch the cricket. Some of them are members of the MCC.
And it's one of the longest days, isn't it, if you're going to go on hospitality? Because it starts at breakfast time and goes all the way until late afternoon.
Yeah, but these guys are not hospitality. These guys are members, right? Yeah. And so what they do is they queue up. It's a bit like Wimbledon, I suppose, where you can get a certain number of places. But these guys, they've got their ticket to get in. That's not a problem. But they're like school kids. Like when I used to go to Goodison Park as a kid, there was a place where there was a wall, because I was only small. I was about like 13 or something like that. And I used to go really early, wait for the turnstiles to open, then run in and get to the wall, which was halfway up the terrace. No. You paid $5 bob at the turnstiles in those days. But I'd run in to get halfway up the terrace where there was a wall which separated the terrace like that, to get in front of the wall because I was only small and that was an elevated position. Yeah. So what these guys...
Well, that's not what they're doing, is it? Are they not just trying to get into the buffet before everybody else?
No, not at all, Mike. Not at all. You don't understand. You understand what
I've never been to Lords, actually. Have you ever been to Lords?
Of course I've been to Lords,
yeah. In the long room and all that?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Have you? What, you've been actually entertained in there?
I've been to a dinner there.
Have you?
I'm a member, actually, of the Jaguar Sports Academy, and I had to go and give a speech there once.
Did you?
Yes.
What was that about?
Sport.
Sport?
Yeah, yeah.
What, just what you knew about it?
Well, yeah, my association with sport and some of the...
And your kind of early leadership qualities in cricket and football.
No, some of the daring-do escapades around the world covering sport and that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And then highly entertaining talk about the foibles of foreign correspondency.
Have you been invited back since?
Well, I don't drive a Jag anymore, you see. I drive a Merc these days.
Oh,
so
I see.
I'll probably join the Merc Sport Academy or something like that.
Okay,
you know
so
what
it's
I mean?
all about a car then?
Yeah, well, you know, it's that sort of thing.
We probably shouldn't get into all that, should we?
No, what I was going to say was, so the reason these guys rush in, you know, and these are middle-aged men who just have a passion for cricket. Some of them wearing their MCC blazers, which are called the bacon and egg.
Bacon and egg, are they?
Bacon and egg tie, the bacon and egg blazer and all that, because they're the colour of bacon and egg.
Right.
That's why, right? And they dash in. And the reason they dash in is because although they're members and although they've got their tickets, and although there's no problem about them getting in, there are certain selected seats, because the seats are not numbered.
So they don't have reserved seats or anything like that? They don't always sit in the same seat?
No, and they dash in because they've got their favourite spot.
That must cause a bit of resentment, though, mustn't it? Because presumably there might be some older members who can't get there quite as quickly, and you'd have to not pinch their seats. That would be very nice.
I think it's the law of the jungle, really, you know, and what's that called, the law of the jungle?
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest, that's the one I was looking for, you know, the food chain.
Well, that's not very respectful, though, is it?
Yes, it is. It's great. It's so very, very English, you know. And so the gates open, they all rush in, the guys with their fedora hats and all that, dashing for their favourite
I think they would have had a
seats.
pretty miserable day yesterday, though, because they didn't have much to cheer about, did they?
Well, no, I suppose not, but they've had a great vantage point, because that's what they wanted. But I just think it's brilliant, and it's part of the English establishment and all that kind of stuff. You know, I do love it. And I think also... there's a lot less snobbery in cricket than there is going to Wimbledon in the Royal Box.
Mind you, I presume that if Lewis Hamilton had turned up at Lord's yesterday dressed like he was, he wouldn't have got in there either, would he?
Yeah, he would have done.
Would he?
Yeah, there's no dress code.
Wouldn't he have to have a blazer? Wouldn't he have to have a tie?
No. Well, he might have done if he was going into the long room for lunch or something like that. I don't really know the answer to that one. But certainly these guys weren't going into the long room. These guys were going into the ground, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And trying to get their favourite seat. And you can dress in anything you want. It's like going to a football match.
Yeah, but have you ever been to one of these big tests and actually gone there dressed in a suit or dressed in anything you liked?
We did one at the Oval once, and we were in the box that was the box of the bloke who ran the Oval.
Right.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And we had lunch there, and we dressed respectfully because we'd already done the breakfast show in the box as well from 6 o'clock. So you can't be expected to sit down in a suit and tie at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know. But I have done all that sort of stuff, and it's quite nice actually because he had a balcony, so we had the prime spot in the whole of the ground, and you know we had an early lunch, and then we lunched actually when the team lunched.
When they lunched,
and then we came on a balcony. So by the time the play started in the second session, right. We had a glass of wine in our hands, watching them out there, pair of binoculars. It was fantastic. The only way to watch cricket, in my view.
And do you remember what the score was or who was playing? Probably not, right?
No, I don't actually.
No, because that's the thing, that you're not really a massive cricket fan, are you?
Well, no, I mean, I don't carry a Wisdons around under my arm or anything like that. But
Right.
I mean, you know, I can tell my Sri Lanka from my India and my Australia from my New Zealand.
So what's your kind of feeling about what's going to happen today then at Lord's? First of all, it's going to be thunder. Did you see the thunderstorms on the way in, by the way?
No, I didn't.
Massive, like, lightning, thunder,
No.
Donner and Blitzen, as you would call it.
I heard somebody on my radio.
Yeah.
I heard it on my radio.
Don't sing, it's too early in the morning.
I heard on my radio somebody saying, oh, well, you know, this will be great for the ground tomorrow. And I thought, what's he talking about? Because I was just coming out of Surrey then. And he said, oh, yeah, great, you know, it's too dry, the wicket. It'll be great tomorrow. I don't know what he's talking about.
Well,
anyway,
it might stop them scoring quite so many runs, I suppose.
I think what will happen tomorrow is I think it could be a very painful day for England.
Yes, I think so too.
Very painful. I mean, I think we could be looking at a declaration in, I don't know, maybe the 600s.
Yes, because
and maybe with only like 2 or 3 wickets gone. That's what I think.
And that's
would
the problem. Well, listening to some of the pundits already, they were saying, well, the best thing England can hope for now is a draw. I'm not quite sure how they're going to manage that.
Probably true.
That's going to be pretty difficult.
But then again, Mike, if you're a student of history, as I am, you will find that critical moments produce critical solutions and heroes.
Yes.
And heroes.
And they come out of nowhere, like they did in the first test. But so far, it's difficult to say who that's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it is. There's a great deal of anti-feeling against this man Warner, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
And I heard Georgie talking earlier about she said she didn't like him. And do you know what? I can kind of understand that. Everything he says seems to have an unpleasant edge to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he
well,
got
we
involved...
were talking about him because he was the guy that kind of got into the scuffle with Joe Root.
In Birmingham.
He was the guy that also was kind of leading the sledging and all that
Yes,
kind of
that's
thing.
right,
And for him to be quite nice to everybody, it's not his natural position. So he's probably feeling particularly resentful.
I think there's two types of Australians. One is the larrikin Australian, you know, the sort of guy who takes life as it comes and, you know, rolls with the punches and all that kind of stuff.
Very good-natured.
Very good-natured. 95% of Australians are like that. Yes. That's why I love going to Sydney and I love the attitude of the Australians towards life and that kind of stuff. But there is a 1% there of Australians who can be, I don't know, almost sort of bitter
chippy.
about... Yeah, that's right.
Very chippy. I think he is one of those,
bitter and sort of lost their sense of humour and all that kind of stuff. And I think he's one of those. But it's a pity. But anyway, there you go.
Well, one of the highlights of the day for me was the hair dye that was being put on show. One by Ricky Ponti. But the other one, as somebody pointed out on Twitter, by Nick Faldo. Did you see Nick Faldo's hair?
No, I didn't.
His hair has gone a very strange, dark colour as well. And it doesn't look quite right. You can always tell, can't you? When it doesn't. I mean, it might have been a very expensive do that was done. It might have been a very expensive kind of process, but actually it doesn't look right somehow.
Do you know what I think is amazing is that Shane Warne was on telly again yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And I've employed Shane Warne here at TalkSport.
Right.
Once paid him £5,000 a programme.
Really?
To come in for an hour.
Very reckless of you.
Well, we were a bit reckless in those days, I have to say. It's probably why we're losing sort of £1 million a year or something like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Under previous management, I have to add.
Of course.
And for an hour, he'd come in, sit here and answer questions from the audience who phoned in. And it was marvellous, you know, the world's best cricketer sitting next to you and all that.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy. I mean, so easy going, you know, he just wandered out, made himself a cup of tea and all this kind of stuff. He's a brilliant guy. And then I didn't have a chance in those days to ask him why he got involved in this hair replacement thing. Yeah. But apparently it was because it was a fantastic financial deal.
Well, a lot of the cricketers have.
Well, I was about to say, and then it became a cricketing thing where all these cricketers got involved. Michael Vaughan and people like this. And I think it's absolutely brilliant that, you know, they have no problem about, you know, the sensitivity that some men have about.
So what is it about cricketers and hair, though?
Well, I don't know. This is what I'm saying.
That's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. And then Ricky Ponting suddenly pitches up, as you quite rightly say. I was waiting for the black dye to start running down his forehead.
It starts raining,
Yeah, exactly, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know why guys can get that sensitive about their hair.
I know. Because you wouldn't dye your hair, would you?
I wouldn't dye my hair. I went to the same clinic where Wayne Rooney had his replacement and went to look and see what it was all about.
Right. That was a transplant, though, wasn't it?
A transplant, yeah. A hair transplant.
Very expensive.
It's in Harley Street. Yeah, and I went round there and I went and saw the guy, and it is very expensive. It would have cost like £65,000.
£65,000?
Yeah. And the guy said to me, I don't think you've lost enough hair to want to transplant. I wouldn't bother.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, so I didn't.
Really?
Well, he said it would have been so difficult because my hair's not consistently gone. It's gone in little bits and pieces.
And it does grow in kind of strange ways, doesn't it? Because it's kind of long in parts and it's not really short in any parts.
My hair is very, very fulsome in certain parts of my head and then sort of thinned out in other parts of the head. But I'm lucky because my old fella was bald by the age of 23.
But normally you inherit that, don't you?
Well, that's except that he fought in the war from the age of 17, so it might have been like shock or he used to get torpedoed in the middle of the Atlantic, which is not a particularly pleasant experience.
No, so your hair could fall out.
It could. If a German Stuka bomber is dropping bombs on you, it's not conducive to a settled mind.
No,
you know what I mean?
What about the time you dyed? We haven't got time to actually have this question and answer session. But I was going to ask you, what about the time you dyed it that funny red colour?
That was for a promotion.
Was it?
Yes.
Wasn't for some other purpose?
No, hang on, I didn't dye it red. I dyed my face red.
No, you dyed your beard and your hair red, wasn't it? I'll find a picture.
Oh no! Tell you what that was. Yeah. That was when I launched my massively successful internet TV station.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
I thought.
How's that going?
Pardon?
How's it going?
No, the listeners don't want to know about that. We're on radio here. We're on radio.
The massively successful one.
Yeah. And
luckily, I don't think you've got time to answer.
No,
this.
I haven't got time to talk about that.
No, we'll have to pick it up again a little bit later. Yeah, I have seen the time. Don't worry about the time. We are the two Mikes. I'm not sure if that conjures up an image of St Andrews for you, does it? I mean, it's a seaside kind of shanty, but it's not really quite the Scottish, sweeping seaside, is it?
That conjures up Skegness to me.
It does, doesn't it?
There's nothing wrong with Skegness,
there isn't,
get me wrong.
No, because you can't slag off any more places, really, because we'll have nowhere left to go. That's part of the problem.
Absolutely.
Let's talk to Bill Fields, who's been watching the Open, as we all have, and quite a dramatic first day. Terrible day for Tiger Woods. Pretty good day for Dustin Johnson, and, of course, for Jordan Spieth as well. Bill, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike and Mike, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. What did you make of what went on yesterday? It was a pretty benign day in terms of the weather, wasn't it, particularly in the morning?
Yeah, for sure. The players that teed off early had to make their hay early, and a lot of them did. Tiger Woods being a very notable exception, going out at 40 in very benign conditions, really shooting himself out of the tournament. But two players that many expected to be right there, Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth, had fine opening days.
And there's a lot of stories on the back pages this morning about Dustin Johnson and him trying to kind of make better and make good on all the other difficulties he's had in the past. Do you think he can stay the course? Do you think he can stay in the lead?
Well, I think he certainly can. You could argue that he's due in a major championship. He came so close at the U.S. Open at Chambers Bay a few weeks ago. 3-putt in the last hole in order to not be in an 18-hole playoff with Jordan Spieth. You could argue that he got really unlucky with his great second shot to the final hole there, where the ball did not trickle back down closer to the hole. But then he gunned the eagle putt by the hole, and I had a bad feeling, and sure enough, he missed it, and it was really a really difficult defeat. And he's had a few of those. He of course had the incident in the bunker at Whistling Straits where he didn't realize it was a bunker and grounded his club. Did not make a playoff there. So he's had some very close calls in majors, and he's got a ton of talent. And but man, the course was just ripe for picking today. With as far as he hits the ball, he played like Tiger did years ago at St Andrews. Just really dismantling some of the shorter par fours with drives and chips or pitches or even putts. It was impressive.
Bill, quite remarkably, a player who's nowhere near the lead and who's not going to win it, the man you've just mentioned, Tiger Woods, is once again grabbing all the headlines. But he's grabbing all the headlines not because he's an outstanding golfer in this Open tournament, but because of how poor he is. How about this for a headline on the back of one of our papers? You are just a hacker, Tiger. Woods mocked after horror 76. Did we ever think we'd see a headline like that about that man?
Probably not. It wasn't pretty, and it hasn't been pretty now for most of this year. The times that he's played in the United States, he's had rounds in the 80s. He's had seemingly the chipping yips. He's just, everyone applauded him at the tournament at the Greenbrier a couple weeks ago. He had 3 rounds in the 60s, and then at the Masters, everyone applauds him. He, finished in the top 20, but he was so far off the pace. He's just miles away from being the player that he was, and he's really miles away from being a contender.
He really is, and he talked yesterday of hitting a couple of shots fat, and that's almost kind of amateur-style golf, isn't it? And he was still full of confidence before the tournament started. He said he still thought he had a chance of winning it. When do you think he's going to be able to convince himself, actually, that he doesn't have it anymore?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how long he continues to play, frankly, if he really continues to have very poor results, or even, I just can't see him playing tournament after tournament, year after year, when he's missing the cut or finishing a good week at T20. Today on the first hole, it was just a horrific approach to hit a second shot into the burn there at number 1. That's a mistake that, a 14-time major winner just does not make or should not make, and he made it. And he got his round off to a horrible tone, and he played okay on the back nine, but the damage had already been done. And we've seen that a few times this year where he goes out and plays poorly, and then it's almost like after the pressure is off, he's then able to stabilize his play. But, that's not going to get him in contention, and certainly not going to get him winning any tournaments.
No, exactly right. Let's talk about Paul Lawrie. Not too many players that we can kind of cheer, I suppose, up there in the running. But Paul Lawrie had a tremendous day, didn't he?
He did. 46 years old. Also, 46-year-old Retief Goosen. They both had fine 66s today, and just terrific play. Paul Lawrie is a guy who really has not factored in any major championships since winning that wild one at Carnoustie in 1999. I was there that year, and what a bizarre finish. He came from 10 shots back to make it in a playoff, and then won the playoff. It was really, a great win for the Scot, but. He's right there, very much surprising after one round. And, we'll see not only how Lawrie does tomorrow, but how all the players do in what, as you guys mentioned, is just predicted to be some really severe weather.
Bill, just talking about Paul Lawrie, is he an example of the fact that golf is such a riches-laden game that if you do win that one major, and I'm thinking of Darren Clarke now as another example, your life is complete. Because, as you quite rightly say, since Paul Lawrie won it, he's never really figured on the radar, and yet he's still there at all the major championships on the basis of one day, really.
Yeah, well, certainly financially in the men's game, much more so than in the women's side. A major victory does pretty much set up a player, I would imagine, for life if they manage their money carefully and have some good advisors. Of course, that doesn't always happen, but you certainly like to think that a player will have good advice and not fritter his money away. I don't think, Paul Lawrie certainly hasn't wished to be in the background. His game just, has not been consistently good enough. And now he's in, his mid-40s, heading to his late 40s. And, it's you have to be an exceptional player to keep your game in strong form, especially as the game has evolved and thanks in large part to equipment. Players are hitting it farther and, it is somewhat more of a young man's game.
Yeah. I mean, Porky Harrington, for instance, he had a burst of about 3 years, didn't he? When he nearly became the world's top golfer, and then Bush disappeared off the scene again. It seems to me that in golf you can summon yourself together for maybe 18 months, make yourself a legend, and then disappear again.
Yeah, to me, Harrington's a mystery. I mean, that guy was an extremely hard worker, and maybe too hard a worker and too curious to, he wanted to keep getting better instead of. And this is an old theme, an old plot in golf. Guys want to get better, but they were really good enough to win a major in the first place. They should have stuck with what got them there. Yeah. And unfortunately, players just can't resist tinkering and trying to get better, and it backfires on them. Yeah,
that's a really good point, Art. What you're saying is that they're in the pursuit of excellence, they sometimes leave the very good behind, do they?
Yes, and I think even Tiger Woods, you could say that's happened to him. Now, one can also say that a guy who's played that much golf from an early childhood age, like Tiger Woods has, that you get bored, and unless you're trying to reinvent your swing, you just can't do it. You can't go out there and keep doing it unless you have something new to focus on. Yeah. Jack Nicklaus was notably an exception. He really did not tweak his game much over his long and successful career. He stuck with what worked. He did tweak his swing a good bit prior to the 1980 season, where he sort of had a revival at basically what age Tiger is now. My goodness, Tiger seems a long way from being able to do what Jack did and win 2 majors when he's 40 years old, which Tiger will turn 40 late this year.
Sure. I don't think that's going to happen. No, I don't think anybody else does, really. What about at the end of the second day, if we were talking this time tomorrow, Bill, do you think the Europeans are going to be kind of favourites to deal with the weather better than the Americans?
Well, if you go by, history or just common wisdom, conventional wisdom, I guess you'd say there's a chance of that. I think Dustin Johnson, if he can keep his wits about him, he's going to be tough throughout the whole week. Of course, tomorrow, if the weather is appreciably worse at one time of day versus the other, then whoever is in those tee times, the games in the afternoon or morning, whichever it might be, they're really going to be victimized and nothing they can do about it. And that happens in the Open more so than in the other 3 majors, I think. If you have the wrong end of the draw, you can really be victimized and have a big hole to dig out from.
Absolutely right. Bill, thanks very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. I didn't see the finish of Ian Poulter's score, but I don't think he did particularly well yesterday, did he?
No.
So I'm not sure whether you were hoping for him to do a bit better.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, when I played my 4 holes with Ian Poulter, he was number 4 golfer in the world.
And he's kind of gone downhill ever since then, really, hasn't he?
He has,
apart from in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it must be the curse of me, I suppose.
I think it must be.
But I tell you what, considering he was number 4 golfer in the world, he was incredibly nice and helpful to me. He said, look, mate, I tell you what, I mean, I'm the world's worst golfer. My best shot is the air shot, without a shadow of a doubt. There's something wrong with my eyes, and I cannot connect the head of a driver.
It's not just your eyes.
To the ball on the tee, and it's a constant.
But this is what surprises me. I mean, if you were such a great cricketer, because a lot of cricketers play golf and they're actually very good at it.
Yes.
They've got this great kind of hand to ball coordination. You don't seem to have that at all.
Well, I didn't say I was a great cricketer. I said I was captain of the King's School Chester.
Well, you must
have
been reasonably good to be captain of the third 11.
Well, I didn't play for the first 11 or anything like that. I was just, I was happy. I mean, I was a midfield general in the footballing world.
Of course.
And, a very, very good schoolboy footballer who played for English grammar schools.
Yes.
And, I just thought I'd remind the audience of that in case they think that I'm a sporting no-no. But cricket was never my game. But golf is even more less my game.
Yeah.
But Ian Poulter was playing with probably the worst golfer he's ever played with. Serious, that's me, right? And he wasn't embarrassed at all. He was incredibly patient, and he taught me all sorts of things. He taught me this leaning back exercise, where you lean back too far and you lose your swing, or if you lean forward a bit. And he was amazing to be told all that by the guy who was the number 4 golfer in the world. Great guy.
He is a great guy.
Yeah.
Indeed, we're going to be talking to a lot of other great guys throughout the course of this show. We've got lots to do. We've got the Porky Quiz coming up as well.
Who are the great people?
Well, I can't tell you at the moment.
Really?
I just can't tell you, but it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
And of course, Newcastle.
Good to know we're getting great
Newcastle is where Mr. Parry says he wants to retire. It's where he used to work, and he's an expert on it. And we'll see whether he gets more than 3 out of 10.
Oh, here the bleeding races.
This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, around about 8 hours from now. I've got a text here from Lee in South Wales. Right. It says, goodness gracious me, did Parry just ask Graham to mind the time? What is going on? Am I in an alternate reality?
No.
Very confusing.
No, you're not in a parallel universe or anything like that. I just thought that Mike had lost the plot in the show, and I thought it was time we went for a break. It's quite as simple as that. We do monitor each other's progress within this show because, of course, it's very high octane, very high speed, and if I see him going off the rails, I just have to tilt the tiller and get him back on.
I'm just very encouraged that you're finally realising that the time is actually quite crucial.
Yeah, but when I'm speaking, the audience don't like to go to a break, seriously.
Well, I know they want to hear you all the time. I know that's what you actually believe.
Some people see me as their sort of alcoholic beverage for the day, if you see what I mean.
I thought you were going to say something else there for a minute.
Oh, yeah?
Alcoholic advisor.
No, not at all. But it gives them a boost, makes them feel better because they know that the man of the people, that's myself, is talking their language.
Yeah, man of the people. We'll talk about that later. Did you see that story about the sharks invading Sussex, by the way?
No, what's that?
You haven't seen it. It's on the front page of the Mirror. There was like 50 sharks invaded West Sussex earlier on today.
What are you on about?
Well, have a look at the front page of the Daily Mirror.
Yeah, but I mean, why...
They're not like killer sharks. They're not the kind that are going to eat people, but they are actually very, very large. Some of them grow as big as 5'3" long, right?
Were they on land or what?
Well, no, they were not on land. What do you think? They're going to, wander out of the sea? They don't walk. They're sharks. They actually swim, and they were swimming in the kind of shallows. And it was an incredible sight, and lots and lots of pictures. Loads of social media people were getting involved in it.
What part of Sussex are we talking about?
Well, it was West Sussex, and it was down sort of towards west of Brighton, really. Sussex Lagoon.
A place called Medmurray.
Yeah. I'm not really that familiar with exactly where it is. But it's strange, isn't it?
That's incredible. See all those fins around in the water. Well, that is amazing,
imagine if you've been in the water, you'd be pretty frightened.
So what kind of sharks are they?
Well, I think they're similar in size to sort of basking sharks. They look a bit like a type of basking shark, but they're not particularly dangerous.
Huge fish everywhere in knee-deep water.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I bet the poor things all died. Because what happens is their sonar, their radar, which guides them through the water, because they haven't got any eyes, sharks. You know what I mean?
What do you mean haven't got any eyes?
Well, they haven't got any eyes to see with, if you see what I mean.
Of course they've got eyes.
Yeah, they have got eyes.
They see their prey.
They have got eyes, but what I mean is they haven't got long-range vision, so they use sonar and radar, which is something built in their brain.
Are you sure about that?
I'm certain about it. I know all about sharks.
Sharks swim all the time, don't they?
Yeah,
they don't actually sleep. So in the end, even when they do sleep, their eyes are still open.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So they see with their eyes.
Yeah, but they don't see long... What I'm saying is they can't navigate with their eyes. They navigate with their sonar in their brain.
Is that right?
And what happens is sometimes that goes askew, and instead of staying in deep water, the sonar gets knocked off and they go into shallow water.
Well, according to the experts, they came in to feed on some crabs.
Yeah, well,
they didn't actually get lost at all. They just quite fancied all the crabs.
Yeah, but once in shallow water, they never get out again. It's very, very rare. Sometimes, shockingly, we see a whale or something which comes up the River Thames or something like that. You never get the whale back into deep water. It always perishes.
Well, that only happened once, didn't it?
No, it happens a lot, because once a whale gets onto anything below about sort of 8 or 10 feet of water, It's touching the bottom of that river or lagoon, and it means that the pressure on its lungs is such that it can't breathe, so it'll die. It's as simple as that, I'm afraid.
These things are called starry smoothhounds.
Really? Yeah. But it is an impressive sight to see all those fins.
And it doesn't say that they perished, so I presume somebody managed to get them out of where they were.
Believe me, they'll perish. Believe me, I know all about sharks.
Well, so they haven't got the sonar to get out of where they go in?
No, they haven't.
Well, we may have to check that with our sort of specialists in fish maintenance or whatever it is.
OK.
And whales, of course, are not fish, are they?
Sorry, what?
Whales are not fish, are they?
No, whales are mammals.
That's right.
Yeah, see, I know
that's
about
why
these
they have
things.
such a problem. Now, the other story I wanted to talk to you about is Benteke, because yesterday Manchester United supposedly were going to come in and get him. Liverpool are going to pay 32 million quid, it says on most of the back pages this morning.
I kind of agree with Jason on this when he was talking earlier about it didn't seem to fit for Benteke to go to United. I agree, because I said to you last night, I thought that when Dwight York went from Aston Villa to Manchester United, that was a perfect fit.
Yeah, that worked very well.
Yeah, and I thought he had the charisma and the relationship with the other players who respected him to go there. Now, I'm not saying that Benteke wouldn't be respected. In fact, actually, you look at his scoring record, it's quite astonishing. Yeah. He scores every other game. And, you know...
but he's kind of not a Manchester United player, though, in a way, is he?
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And I think he'd be better suited at Liverpool. But whether or not Liverpool, you know, the people who own Liverpool want to risk £32 million of the money they've got for Raheem Sterling on yet another forward who... supposedly we'll have to replace Luis Suarez, which they spent all last season trying to do, you know what I mean?
But they've gone down that route of trying to buy in sort of players who didn't cost that much money and weren't going to be stars, and that didn't really work, did it? So maybe they've decided that actually what we do need is to spend some proper money and do it properly.
But the other thing you have to think of here, right, and this is a bit of football psychology, if Manchester United are not battling hard enough to get Benteke to Old Trafford... then they probably don't think he's an elite player.
No.
So,
well, I don't think he's an elite player.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. So, shouldn't Liverpool look at it from the point of view that, well, Manchester United don't think he's good enough for them, and they want to be the Premier League champions next season, so why are we taking a second-best player?
Well, I don't think they see themselves...
million.
Yeah, but I don't think they see themselves as that kind of team at the moment. They're not really a top-4 team, and they haven't got enough players yet. Good enough players and big name players to get in there. And this is what we were saying last season.
Has to get into the top 4 next season.
He does,
without a shadow of a doubt. So
but without spending a massive amount. I mean, one of the papers is saying that Karim Benzema might be available from Real Madrid and Arsenal might go for him. I mean, it's like they need somebody like that, don't they? They need to spend 40 million plus to get him.
The other thing I found odd was Tim Sherwood, my old friend.
Your old friend Steve.
And my old friend Tim Sherwood. Said from the Villa training ground, or whatever Villa are at the moment, I think there's a training ground, he said that, well, there's nothing I can do about it. There's a buyout clause. I don't agree with that, because although you could say, well, the buyout clause says if anybody comes in for 32.5 million, he's got to go.
They have to entertain the offer.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Is that what it means, though? They have to entertain the offer rather than he definitely has to go.
Yeah, but what it also means is the player can choose whether or not to kick in the clause in his contract which says if that club's offered 32.5 million, I'm off.
Yeah.
Tim Sherwood's job as the manager of Villa is to make it more attractive for him to stay at Aston Villa
but
and
they
improve
can't probably
Aston Villa.
Compete, can they, in terms of how much they can pay him?
I think you can these days. I think you can, because I think that now that the television revenues are so enormous, £100 million minimum for every team in the Premier League, all you've got to do is say, right, well, we'll put most of our resources in to keep him Benteke at this club, and so he won't be attracted to the bigger salary he's going to get. Liverpool aren't that big a club than Villa.
Well, they are, though, because they are going to try and get into the top 4, and they will be there or thereabouts, even if they're not in it.
Yeah,
whereas
but at the moment
Villa,
they're not, are they?
Yeah, but Aston Villa are not going to be up there, are they? Aston Villa are going to be down, sort of trying to fight off relegation again.
I totally agree. But the part of the game plan these days, Mike, is to make your club commercially attractive as well as successful on the field.
Yeah.
And a commercially attractive club is one that plays good football, that gets into the top 6 or 8 in the Premier League, because then they become, you know, a team that people talk about. You get better shirt deals,
and
you
Aston
get more
Villa
money
are on the
for
brink,
sponsorship
not
and all
necessarily
that.
on the brink of being sold, but they're kind of for sale as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. They are. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, the resignation of a manager who says, I mean, funny enough, Jose Mourinho said it to Alan Brazil about Peter Cech. I can't stop him going, but you can if you make the.
Yeah, but he couldn't stop Peter Cech going because he couldn't promise him first team football, could he?
And that is completely different to what Tim Sherwood was saying. When I can't stop him going because the clause can kick him, but you can by making it more attractive, life more attractive at Villa. And if you've got a star like him, it's the old everlasting problem at a club. If you've got and West Ham have had it for 30 years or 40 years. If you've got a star player at your club and you can make him stay, does that help you attract other star players to make your team better?
Well, it should.
Of course it should, but then
again, he's not quite there yet, is he? He's not quite that superstar status. People will go, oh, we get to play with Christian Benteke.
No, that's
Let's
true.
go to Aston Villa.
Absolutely right.
Because you were saying you were going to talk a little bit later on about Brian Hall. And the news, sad news about him.
Yeah.
And when you think of Liverpool back then, it's a very, very different prospect.
It is. I totally
agree. The Liverpool
agree.
team that is now being put together by Brendan Rodgers is still a very long way away from all of that.
I totally agree with that. You're absolutely right. I don't know how you got that right, but you somehow did. Brian Hall, by the way, who we can talk about now because we're talking about Liverpool. Yeah. It was amazing because I grew up in Chester and I used to go over and watch Everton. And of course, there was many mates in my class who were Liverpool fans as were Everton fans, you know what I mean, and Manchester United fans. But that was an amazing era, Brian Hall, because it was the first time we had intelligent footballers. No, I'm sorry, that's been insulting to footballers. It was the first time we had university-educated footballers.
And it was also the first time, I suppose, that you would hear more of them talking, which you didn't do so much before that,
that's true.
Because of the media.
But get this, Steve Coppell, right, used to go to university in Liverpool to study economics and play for Manchester United on a Saturday. How about that? Yeah. Now,
Steve Highway, I think, was.
Well, I was about to say,
else,
what Liverpool had was Liverpool had Steve Highway with a degree on one wing and Brian Hall with a degree, I think he had economics as well, on the other wing. Right. They had two university graduates, and it was absolutely unheard of because in those days it was still the era of footballers only ever came from council housing estates, and they had holes in their shoes when they walked into their club.
And they weren't even being paid that much money, either.
They weren't being paid that much money, and they were usually off the terraces of the clubs that they were playing for, you know what I mean? And
that was the Liverpool era that I used to go to quite a lot with my sister. As I said, when she was a big fan of the place, and I used to go to Anfield quite a lot. It was a fantastic team they had in those days.
Of course it was. Tommy Smith was still around, wasn't he?
He was.
And played in that team. I'm sure Rowdy Yates was still around, the captain.
Yates, I think, had gone by then.
Yates had gone. The flying pig, Tommy Lawrence, the goalkeeper, he'd gone.
Tommy Lawrence was not there. It was Ray Clements, I think.
Jeff Strong was in that team.
Yeah. Chris Lawler, I think it was, right back.
I'm not sure Chris Lawler was still there because he played in the Cup final in '65, so I don't know. But anyway, all I was going to say was Brian Hall made a difference, and then years later, when I was the Director of Communications of the Football Association, we had to go to Anfield for some sort of promotion. I can't remember what it was. And that was the first time I saw that historic sign, this is Anfield and all that. And the guy who was looking after youth development was Brian Hall.
Right.
And, he stayed with Liverpool for a number of years afterwards. And he was a very nice guy. And, a highly intelligent bloke and all that. I'm very sorry to hear that he's died at the age of 68.
At the age of 68, which is quite young, really, isn't it?
It is these days, isn't it? 68 is no age, is it? No age at all. People are still working in the jobs at 68 these days, so bit of a shame. And for a football manager, 68's not old now, is it?
No, it's not.
Not really old, no.
Let me read you a couple of texts that have come in on the Shark front. LD in Stockport says, Parry is talking absolute nonsense as usual. Sharks using sonar, what a plank. Sharks use electromagnetic fields to navigate and help hunt using their lateral lines and ampullae of Lorenzini. They also use their incredible sense of smell to locate food. Shark expert, he's crackers.
No, that's exactly what I said.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
TC says, Mr. Parry, whales have sonar, not radar, based on sound.
Yeah.
Beached, lost whales typically have an ear parasite and can't hear the echolocation. It is not the water depth. Sharks have an electrical
Whales
field
haven't
sense.
got ears.
Whales must have ears because
they
have
ears.
to be able to hear the sonar.
OK, when did you last see a whale that looked like Jumbo the elephant?
Well, they don't have external ears, do
That's
they?
what I'm saying.
They can still have ears.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have ears.
Well, they can have ears that are not actually sticking out.
No, they have physical things in their body from which they can detect
hearing
sound.
devices.
Hearing devices.
Which are not ears.
Of course they're not ears.
Are you sure about that?
Of course I'm sure about that.
Well, these people seem to know an awful lot more about it.
When did you last see a whale that looked like a rabbit, that looked like Bugs Bunny?
Well, whales don't have ears like that.
Yeah,
they don't have external ears.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But they have the ability to hear, obviously.
But I'm not going to be roundly mocked by somebody who sends in a tweet or a text or something saying, whales...
TC says, please sort out your scientific knowledge, or rather lack of it.
My scientific knowledge is absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Everything that I've been told in those two texts, I have already briefed the audience about. I need no corrective, info from the very, very welcome audience.
Well, educated and welcome audience. Yeah. Maybe we should have a quiz on sharks down the road and see how well you do on that.
There's not enough about sharks to be able to do a quiz of 10 questions.
Not enough about sharks? No. One of the greatest predators known to man.
Yeah, well, that's about it. And when you say the sense of smell and all this kind of stuff, they don't have a great sense of smell.
Sharks?
They
do. They can smell blood from, hundreds of miles away.
I was about to say that's where the expression came from. Yeah. I can smell blood. That's the only thing a shark can smell is blood.
Well,
can't smell anything else.
That's all they need to smell.
A shark couldn't say, that passing oil tanker's just disgorged 120 litres of oil, because they can't smell oil. They can only smell blood.
How do you know that?
I know that because I've studied the shark intelligentsia.
Manual?
Well, not the shark manual, but you know what I'm saying. I know these things. I pick these things up in life because I tell you where I learned that.
No, you can't tell me anymore.
No, I learned that in Australia. I learned that in Australia from a guy who was a shark expert who used to go swimming with sharks.
Did he?
Yeah, not in a cage. He just used to go swimming with them. He used to tickle them.
Is he still
alive?
alive?
To tickle the shark. Yeah, still got all his legs and hands.
Excellent. Well, that's always handy if you're going to swim with people. Mr. Parry and myself will be back very shortly. It's Porky Quiz night. It's on Newcastle tonight, of course. So if you're from that part of the world, you might want to listen very, very closely. It's not time for... This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes, and of course you can tweet us at the Two Mikes, at Mike Parry and at IROMG. Lots of tweets have come in actually, and there's one great picture of Boris Johnson on a bike, and Daniel says, I just wanted to wind Porky up a bit more. I think he might explode if I said this picture in a Boris Johnson. Yeah, and that's Boris
waving his hand around on his bike. I'm sorry, but Boris Johnson's got a lot to answer for. He really has. I mean, you know, he tries to be this clownish, buffoonish type guy on the exterior and tell everybody that he's, you know, a genius on the interior. Well, if he's a genius, why is he bringing London to a standstill? One of the world's great cities is literally choking to death because of what I would consider to be a misplaced policy in trying to turn it into Amsterdam. You can't turn London into Amsterdam. Historically, it's just not possible.
But I think you've given him enough of a hard time.
Yeah, I have. I don't want to talk about him again.
How about this? Julian says, Porky's been drinking in too many dodgy Bournemouth backroad pubs with the local sharks, methinks.
Yeah.
Rep says Parry is a marine biologist now, is he? And he's not really believing that.
No,
Liam says, sharks can see for miles. They close their eyes in attack mode for protection. As usual, Parry is showing his ignorance.
How can a shark see for miles? You can't see through water for miles, so I'm sorry. Well, it's all very well if you're trying to tell me that, you know, I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's the most idiotic text we've ever taken on this show.
Yeah, but if you are actually, you know, a marine animal and you live and you're a fish and you live in the sea, then surely you're going to have better eyesight underwater than a human. Robin says, clueless Porky confusing sharks with dolphins.
No, I'm not confusing anything with anything. I know exactly what I'm talking about. You see, the problem is there are too many points of view sometimes in this show from people who think they know what they're talking about, but actually are misguided.
Oh, really?
But I don't have a go at them, do I?
Well,
I don't have a go at them.
Whenever you're criticised, you immediately lash out. Now, Mars has sent one in, which is a picture of you with that red beard and red hair, which is rather fetching, but you didn't keep it for too long, did you?
No, I didn't. You see, it's a falsehood type thing, and I'm not into falsehoods. What you see is what you get with myself. Now, listen, I want to ask you about this. What's this wristband you're wearing, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm wearing a wristband. It's called a loom. It's called a loom band, actually. It was made by my son because he's doing that at the moment. It's one of those kind of things that kids get into doing. And
made by your son? What, at school?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't at school, but all his friends do it. They pick up these little elastic bands and they make them into different multicoloured type bracelets.
How do they do it,
right? Well, they link them all together. It's like a sort of
like
a
daisy
chain type thing, yeah. But he said, since you go to Newcastle, I'll make you a black and white one. So
That's
I'm
very
going to
nice.
wear it
Good.
up to Newcastle and I'll wear it on the stage. It's not something I would normally wear.
Yeah.
But loom bands are all the rage.
Is it part of his homework?
No, it's not part of his homework. It's just something he likes to do in his spare time.
Do you believe in doing away with children's homework? Because that's a current debate inside the educational world.
No, I don't think you should do away with it. But I think it needs to be a little bit more focused.
I was talking to my friend who's the education correspondent on a national newspaper the other day, and he says this is the next big debate. You know, there's a certain tranche of the teaching profession, union or whatever, who think that homework's a waste of time now. And the revolutionary thing will be to have none.
Well, the problem is that, you know, some schools set way too much homework. I mean, one of my kids was coming back with loads and loads of stuff to do every single weekend. Yes. And it was just too much. And, you know, they have to have a little bit of time to enjoy themselves and not actually be working all the time. I can't imagine you would have ever done homework. I bet you used to cheat on your homework, didn't you?
No, I didn't used to cheat on it.
Didn't you pay somebody else to do it?
No, I just didn't used to do it.
No, but that would have been in kind of character, wouldn't it, if you paid somebody who was really good at it to do it for you?
Well, not really. Because at that age I wasn't that entrepreneurial, to be honest. So
So how did you get away with not doing it then?
Well, it came at the same time I discovered drink and women.
Right.
So it was that age when I was studying for my A-levels, and I didn't get the A-level grades I should have done because I didn't do enough homework.
Right.
I didn't mind doing homework when I was younger, because I found it quite exciting, you know, at 13 and 14.
Well, also when you were sitting in that
things.
kind of place under the stairs or wherever it was and everybody else was having, you know, doing things in twos.
Yeah, exactly.
You wanted something to do, I guess.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Now, listen, the other thing I want to talk to you about schools, what is mindfulness? Because this is another thing that my education friend was telling me. I wrote a note down here. Mindfulness should be taught in schools.
Is this the thing that you were banging on about a few months ago, about how you were going to kind of lead your life in a more philosophical way?
Well, it says that in order to divert teenagers from drink and drugs, right, they're going to introduce mindfulness classes. Mindfulness is defined in a book I looked up in this afternoon, a meditation-style technique often used to help adults with depression, anxiety and other mental health issues. It's been adopted by some state and private schools, including the leading college, Wellington, which has it on its
well, how do you get into
curriculum.
it, though? I mean, is it something that you just have to do yourself, or can they actually teach it, then?
No, you can teach it. Professor Sarah Jane Blakemore is one of a team of educationalists carrying out research and a £6.4 million trial, right? She says it's particularly good at and helpful to teenagers whose brains are more vulnerable to taking part in harmful activities. Now, what I find out about this, Mike, is that mindfulness up to now has been associated with like celebrities and people like that.
Yeah.
So it's
it's a form of meditation, isn't it?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
exactly.
You can't really teach meditation, can you, to kids?
What I'm saying is this like airy fairy nonsense?
Not necessarily.
Gobbledygook.
Well, if it helps them, I don't think it's gobbledygook.
Well, is it helping?
I don't mind them having this kind of what they call more rounded approach to education. I don't mind them teaching them things other than just the basics.
If it's designed to help people out of depression, and this, of course, is a terribly dodgy subject, depression, all that kind of stuff, I don't think kids 12, 13 and 14 actually suffer from depression or know about depression.
Well, they can do. I mean, they absolutely can do. I mean, anything that helps them get through whatever their problems in life are, I think is probably a good thing, as long as it doesn't necessarily detract from the other stuff that they have to learn as well.
Yeah. It says mindfulness is aimed at escaping tunnel vision in your daily life. It's said to help people gain a wider perspective of themselves and the world, so giving a greater enjoyment of life and an enhanced productiveness in the workplace. Isn't that a bit heavy for kids aged 12, 13 and 14?
What you don't really want is kids going through primary school and being worried all the time about their SATs results, which is what they have to worry about in order to go to secondary school, and then worrying about more exams and learning stuff over and over and over, and then going to university and then getting out into the real world and not actually having any kind of breadth at all.
It says here, during mindfulness meditation, participants sit in silence and pay attention to their breathing, refocusing the mind whenever it starts to wander. Now, that to me sounds like what the Beatles used to do with the Maharishi Yoga in 1960s.
With the aid of certain substances.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I think this is all a load of gobbledygook.
Well, I think
it's dangerous.
I don't think so.
I think we're taking our children down a route of, the sort of thing that wide-eyed and wild-eyed young adults get into. Yeah. And I think it's too soon to teach teenagers all this nonsense about, look inside yourself, pal. I mean, no. Children shouldn't look inside themselves. They should look out at the world.
Well, it might be that some people will benefit from it and others won't particularly take to it. But I don't think it's a bad thing to introduce.
I think it's terrible. I think for a 14-year-old to be told, right, sit there, don't do anything, meditate, focus on yourself, that's horrific.
Why?
That's horrific.
Well, why wouldn't you have wanted to do that when you were 14?
That would have scrambled my brains. Yeah. I don't want to know about my own brain and my own mind.
Your brains were
already
scrambled by then, weren't they?
No, I'm not going to take insults like that and react to them.
It's not an insult. It's after your story yesterday, which a lot of people felt
petty.
A lot of people were very touched by your story yesterday about how, as the kind of the odd one out in the family, you actually had to find ways of making yourself happy and making yourself busy, finding yourself on the wrong end of the car seat, finding yourself on the wrong end of the dinner table.
No, you're making out like I'm a victim. I wasn't a victim at
all.
Well,
I'm not saying that.
It was just they had 3 children. I mean, there was one moment which some people highlighted me today, and that was the sad moment when my mother only had a shilling to buy the ice creams, could only get 2 ice creams at 6p each, and I deferred and let my sisters have the 2 ice creams when we were walking back home from our picnic.
Very sad.
And but I was stoic about it.
But you see, if you were at school then and people were saying to you, why don't you now kind of look upon yourself as an object and try and find out what's going on inside your brain? It might have helped you. It might have made you feel better about it.
This is all madness, this. I mean, telling a teenager, aged 12, 13 or 14, like, sit there, breathe deeply, focus. Honestly, all I got in my head is an image of the Beatles sitting there in their caftans, staring into the eyes of the Maharishi Yoga. This is madness. This is far too...
I thought you would be in favour of people kind of exploring, new ideas and new worlds and all that kind of thing.
When they're adults, when they're 19 or 20 or 21 or something like that, and their brains are fully developed and they're physically developed, but not impressionable children, impressionable teenagers. They've got enough to worry about. They're only just discovering the opposite sex at that age. They're only just discovering alcohol.
That's the point.
They're only just discovering, how you make choices in life.
But I think it's a lot more difficult now to grow up as a 13 or 14-year-old than it was when you were 14 or when I was 14. There's so much more going on. There's so much more kind of at your disposal.
Yeah, but they've got so much more. Children have got so much more these days.
Yeah, they have, but they don't know any different. They don't know that that's a great thing to be because that's what they've all been used to all their lives. They've always had a lot of stuff.
Well, it could be. By the way, with you living in the country and all that, down there in Sussex and all that, have you got an Arga?
An Arga, no.
Do you know Arga, the company, has just been sold to the Americans?
Has it?
Now, normally I get really upset about British institutions being bought by foreign companies.
Yeah.
I hate it because it's, Cadbury's were bought by an American company, Kraft, weren't they, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't mind if they bought the Arga company and just shipped it to America so we didn't have any more Argas in this country ever
I'm
again.
not a big fan of Argas.
Argas are just a complete con trick. Argas are for dopey-headed people who usually live in big houses, have got nothing better to do, but the Arga is the most inefficient form of cooking since cavemen did it.
I agree with you.
Since cavemen did it.
I actually agree with you on that.
It is utter rubbish and nonsense.
One of the houses
and
that
only
I
posers.
bought in Wiltshire had an Arga. We actually chucked it out because it was a coal-fired one as well, which was going to be really dirty and messy.
It's mad. It's for posers only. I went to somebody's very nice house.
The time, by the way.
Don't worry about the time.
I'm worried about
I went to somebody's very nice house, and you're absolutely right. Next to this magnificent sort of Arga in this kitchen with beautiful tiles, they had a coal scuttle full of coal, which, every 2 hours you have to chuck a load of coal into the Arga. It's
ridiculous.
Outrageous.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever want one of those. Yeah. The Americans are welcome to.
I agree.
And, of course, the Americans are particularly kind of impressed with themselves when they've got
Dump your Argas.
Well, don't start another campaign. I don't think there's any time for that. We've got lots more to do. Sandra Lee's coming up in a little while. Porky Quiz later on in the show too. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, although for the moment we're only the one mic, actually, because Mr. Parry's disappeared out of the studio. But he'll be back, I'm sure, very, very shortly.
No, I'm back.
You're back already?
I'm back.
Very well done indeed. I've got a couple more zoologist-type tweets to read out to you and text. One here from TC, who says, as a professional zoologist, I can assure Mr. Parry he is talking tripe. Of course, whales have ears. The ear bone is huge and incredibly dense. The oddity is that our ear bones vibrate within us, but whales vibrate around this bone. In this way, they can hear each other over hundreds of kilometres. And Andy says, Mike, can you show that shark expert, Mr. Parry, this, please? On a serious note, I enjoy his babbling. A shark's eye includes a cornea, iris, lens and retina, just like ours, and has rods and cones, allowing the shark to see in colour and at different levels of light. Sharks, similar to cats, also have a mirror-like layer in the back of the eye called the tapetum lucidum, and this layer enhances the eye's sensitivity to light. The shark's eye is 10 times more sensitive to light than ours, and most sharks see their prey when it is about 70 to 100 feet away.
Yeah, I know all that. But
that's quite good, isn't it?
The density of water and chlorine in water and all that kind of...
There's no chlorine in the sea.
Well, salt it is. Salt
unless you're in a swimming pool.
In
got
water.
A shark in a swimming pool, you'd have to have something to worry about.
Yeah, you would, yeah. But the density of water, the salt in water, the refraction of light into water, which makes it look blue from space, means that there is, there is only a limited length through which a shark can see.
I think you're starting to backtrack now, because sharks can obviously see very, very well underwater. 70 to 100 feet away, they can see their prey.
By the way, the other thing I've discovered, because I've just been thinking about it, is, when they get all these cycle superhighway lanes and all that kind of stuff, do you know that they're going to have devices on these bikes which make lights turn green for bikes, but not for cars?
So as they're approaching because what they do now, of course, as a car approaches, it goes red, doesn't it?
That's right.
And then it changes to green for about 2 seconds. One car goes through.
That's right.
And then you get stopped again.
Yeah, but the cyclist doesn't take note of a red light.
Well,
cyclist
most of them go through, don't they? Yeah, I know.
Now, I'll tell you the other thing.
How's a thermal camera going to work, though?
How's what?
How's a thermal camera going to work on a bike?
Well, I don't know, but this taxi driver who took me across town today, he came up with the perfect solution. He said they should all be made to wear high-vis jackets with a number on the back, right?
Yeah.
So a licence number, like a licence plate on a car.
So it doesn't matter what bike they're on, they'll just be registered as a cyclist.
Exactly. And in the future, when they cycle superhighways, all cars will have cameras in the way a lot of cars do now on the dashboard, and you will be able to film and record every traffic violation of a cyclist with his number on his back. He will then be charged with a motoring offence.
Because that's one of the things that people complain about, is you can't actually track any of these people because you don't know what their registration number is, you don't know anything about that, and they're not insured and all of that. It is one of those things that's going to go on and on forever, but they do have to... I mean, I was saying this the other night, they do have to do something, because otherwise there's going to be...
We're going to be taken over by them.
Well, it's just going to be a ridiculous fight that doesn't ever stop, and that's not really the way we want to go. I don't have a problem with a lot of cyclists going around the centre of London, as long as they actually designate particular roads for them to do it on.
But the other thing is, and this is a very serious issue now, is that cyclists are being killed because the authorities are now so pro-cyclist. This is a psychological thing. Cyclists now think they are kings of the road, right? Psychologically, they think that they have the upper hand over motorists. So they are not being alert enough to traffic around them. And very sadly, cyclists are losing their lives on a regular basis in London. I don't know if it happens in other cities.
Not as much, I don't think.
When lorries turn
it's not
at
as
certain
congested,
junctions...
that's the point.
When lorries turn at certain junctions and bikes get crushed under those lorries. And the other thing is, and again, this is very serious...
But that is the point, in a way, of the superhighway for bicycles, so that they're not actually in the same space, in the same lane as any of these big vehicles. Though.
No, the thing is, Mike, seriously, because I've had a look at this in depth. You can have a supercycle highway, but you still have to come to a roundabout. You can have a supercycle highway, but you still come to a junction. Now, you can't run a supercycle highway across a crossroads. It still has to stop. The bikes still have to stop.
I mean, they do have it in some places in Europe,
and cars still have to turn left, and lorries have to turn left.
They can do it in places in Europe where there's more space, but there isn't the space in London to do it.
Exactly. The only way you can build a supercycle highway, right, is to build it at height, i.e. put it 20 or 30 feet above the road and just let cyclists go on it. That's the only safe way of doing it. Do you know what's happening now? But
that would cost even more money, wouldn't it?
Well, let me tell you this. The haulage industry itself is in for a bill of billions of pounds because lorries in future are going to have to built with safeguards all the way down the side of them.
Some of them are doing it already.
Some are doing it already to cover the wheels, right? So cyclists can't go under the wheels.
So are you telling me your answer is to have all sorts of kind of elevated cycling lanes?
That's what I would do.
All over London. That would look ridiculous, though, wouldn't it?
Well, if they want cyclists, they're going to have to pay for it. Somebody's going to have to pay for it. I mean, in the same way as they build metro, high-level metro transport in places like Chicago, right? We've seen it in Chicago. Right. In places like Tokyo, okay? Yeah. If they want a cycle superhighway, the only place to put it is 30 feet above the ground.
Like the Docklands Light Railways.
Yes, exactly, absolutely.
Well, maybe it's a better idea than it actually sounds.
Well, I think it's a good idea. Now, we were talking about your child earlier, and
there's a loom band,
homework, and the loom band, and all that. Do you think the schools take too much responsibility for the upbringing of a child? For instance...
No, I don't think so.
For instance, my sister was telling me only the other day that one of her friends is a teacher who now monitors the cleaning of their children, their pupils' teeth up till the age of 8.
They monitor it?
They actually clean their teeth in school.
Do they?
And this is not in some, sink estate anywhere. This is in Bournemouth.
Right. Well, I mean, I know from the people that I talk to who are teachers that they have a terrible, terrible time trying to work out what they're supposed to be doing from one sort of term to the next because it keeps changing every single time.
The teacher's responsibility?
Yeah, the responsibilities, the curriculum. They don't want to be overbearing. They don't want to kind of spy on families. But at the same time, if there are people who are not perhaps looking after their kids as well as they should be, they have to try and correct it, but they can't just correct them. They have to correct everybody, so they have to do all sorts of things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, apparently it is a huge problem.
But I've not heard of my kids being told to brush their teeth actually in school.
It's a huge problem because apparently teachers now are subject to directives from local education authorities, but also have teacher union responsibilities.
Yeah, they do.
Which conflict sometimes with what they're being told by the education authorities.
It's true.
And as in any workplace, the unions usually are run by the more militant of the members of that profession.
Right.
Not they're bad people or anything, but they are more determined and that sort of thing. Yeah. And if they think there's a particular policy that they've got to pursue, they pursue it with vigour. So sometimes, my sister was telling me from her friend who's a teacher, they are being torn between the wishes and the wants of an education authority against the sage advice, which is completely contrary from the teaching union.
Yeah, and that is the problem, and it keeps changing. That is the big problem. Let's go to the phones, because Ian is a Newcastle fan, actually.
Great.
He's in Leicester.
Great.
Ian, very good morning to you.
Morning to you, fellas.
Yeah,
really
hello,
good
Ian.
stuff, your shows. I just want to add to what he's been saying, Porky, about these cyclists, because I'm a HGV trucker. I finished my shift, by the way. I'm at home now.
Good man.
But driving in London, I mean, apart from the car drivers, it's that these cyclists seem to think they've got a law unto themselves.
Yes.
The way they jump traffic lights. I've had cyclists come shooting across me off the pavement, and then they turn around with their hand up in the air like, "What are you doing, mate?" And I thought, what are you doing?
No.
I mean, the best thing I ever did last year, I actually cycled to work. I thought I'd take a look at it from their perspective. Yeah. And I actually found it bloody terrifying, having these HGV truckers coming past me. Yeah. So now I'm more conscious than ever when I'm driving in the cities of cyclists to make sure I don't squash anybody.
No. And what's it like in other cities, Ian? Is it as bad as it is in London or not?
Well, I don't know what it is about the mentality in London. It's like the world's coming to an end. I mean, you guys work there. It's like nobody's got the time of day. I had a guy telling me once that his mum's dying in hospital. Can they move your lorry? I mean, it's like, I just don't know what it is about. Maybe it's capital cities. There's a mentality about everybody's got to be there yesterday. I mean, you must have noticed.
Yeah, well, it's certainly that, Ian. Do you know what the worst one is, Ian? And this is more difficult for an HGV driver. If you're at a junction and it's traffic lights and you want to turn right, you have to wait for the flow of traffic coming from the other direction to stop when the lights change, and then you get about a few seconds just to turn right to exit that junction. But the thing with the cyclists is they're so venomous about wanting to get on their way, the minute that light changes, they're at you. And you haven't even got time to clear the junction before they literally come right up to your passenger window, your driver's window, and start shouting and snarling at you, get out of the way, get out of the way. And you haven't had time.
Actually, there's a traffic lights in Leicester just like the same thing. I get pissed off about it. You've got literally 30 seconds to get your truck round. The next minute the thing's going to amber. What time is your Newcastle quiz? Have I missed that?
No, it's coming up. It's coming up. You have to keep listening. It's coming up after 3 , basically.
Great stuff. All right, good show, lads.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
I mean, it must be very difficult, actually, if you are an HGV driver, to have to put up with all of that. Because
I totally
your
agree.
living. Absolute nightmare.
But what I'm saying is, when I keep banging on about the economy, there's going to be a day when HGV drivers won't come into London for fear of, injuring or killing a cyclist or
Well, there are people who would like that to be the case, though.
Oh, of course they would.
And they'd have to deliver everything somewhere outside and bring it in smaller vans.
Well, I mean, how does the economy of London work if you starve it of resources to go about your business? I mean, for instance, right, I was walking through your part of town this morning, Borough Market, right, which is a beautiful place.
It is a lovely place.
It's got all these bread shops and
Did you stop in and try anything that was
on
sale?
But it's a lovely old-fashioned market, with greengrocers and all that kind of stuff, and exotic sort of pastries and whatever. And I was there earlier. It was kind of 4:30ish, 5 o'clock, and all these vans come in and bring all the stuff. Now, they have to do that and then get out, right? But if the day ever comes when there's a restriction on HGV vehicles coming to London because it's upsetting to cyclists, that market would have to close down.
Well, it wouldn't. They just have to do it at different times of the day, because that's what they did in New York. Remember, they stopped trucks from going to certain streets in Midtown Manhattan, except for something like before 7 in the morning and after 11 o'clock at night. And actually worked all right.
Well, I'm telling you that the lorries that come there come from very long distances, and they simply can't get there in the times that you want them sometimes. Some of them come from the continent, and particularly when, Europe is as screwed up as it is now, and you can't get lorries across the English Channel and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be chaos. I'm telling you, chaos.
It's already chaos. I'm not sure it can get any worse. We got lots more to do. The Porky Quiz is coming up in the next hour. Sandra Lee from Australia coming up next. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Australia all over the back pages, of course, this morning after putting England rather to the sword yesterday at Lord's. And I'm delighted to say that we're going to talk to our good friend who we haven't spoken to for a very long time, Mr. Parry, Ms. Sandra Lee.
Absolutely.
Down in Sydney. Sandra, very good morning to you. Welcome back.
Good morning, chaps, and it's an absolute delight to be back. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's great to hear from you again. How's life down under?
Well, I would like to tell a Porky, and say it's been a glorious sunny day, but we're in the middle of winter, and we're having what people down here are saying is something of an Arctic vortex, because it's pretty cold.
Yeah, well, I'd like that, actually. I might come to Australia this time of the year, get away from the oppressive heat here in London.
I'm not sure they'd want you back at this point, would they?
That's a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sandra, I suppose you've got a big smile on your face after the way that the first day of the second test has gone, particularly as you were humiliated in the first.
Oh, I know. I think all of Australia is grinning from ear to ear, and especially after we got that fantastic sort of result of beating, the opening part. Well, I'm not sure if it was an opening partnership, but beating one of Bradman's partnerships at Lord's.
Yeah, a new record was broken, which is never something that we'd like to see the Australians doing. But apparently the Australian press was giving the team a pretty hard time after losing the first test. So has it all changed now? Has everybody got behind them again?
Yes, well, today's back pages, all the sports pages, are absolutely sort of rhapsodic over our boys over there. And you're right, we did give them a bit of a caning after they lost the first test, because it was pretty shocking, you've got to admit. They didn't cover themselves in glory.
There was also a lot of talk up here, Sandra, about dressing room dissent, rifts in the camp, breakdown in relations between the management and the players and this sort of thing. And that always stirs up the idea that the whole thing's in chaos, doesn't it? So it must have been particularly gratifying to see the whole thing being pulled together so successfully today.
Yes, so quickly too, because and also I think everybody was a bit shocked, like, who plays cricket in Cardiff?
Yeah,
it's not exactly the home of cricket.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. It's a country where they don't even play cricket, as you're quite right.
Well, they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been there playing it. I mean, it's the England and Wales cricket board, isn't it? Even though the Aussies think they're just playing England, it is actually England and Wales.
Yes, but I mean, Wales, apart from sort of odd tournaments, don't actually play, do they?
You're not going to slag off the entire nation of Wales.
Oh, of course I'm not. No, Sandra. One thing I tell you, who was here today? The former Australian Prime Minister 4 times. What was his name? John
Howard.
John Howard.
Yeah, he was here today as a guest. Now, John Howard, is he seen in Australia? Is he a sort of Australia's Margaret Thatcher type figure, if you know what I mean? A legendary figure from the past who was quite revolutionary but has now sort of disappeared into the shadows.
Or universally hated, as Margaret Thatcher seems to be now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, the lefties still don't like John Howard, but the mainstream Australian public, I reckon about 80% of them absolutely idolise him and think he's one of the greatest prime ministers that we've ever had. Certainly, in sort of, political and historical terms, he's the best post-war prime minister that we've ever had, and most people really love him. And, he was there in England because he is one of our greatest cricket tragics.
Oh, really?
What do you mean?
Yeah, what he doesn't know about cricket isn't worth knowing. He is an absolute scholar of the game.
Well, that's very encouraging, that, because what we continually have here in England, as I'm sure you're aware, are prime ministers who want to curry favour with their electorate and the voters by pretending they know so much about sport. We had a Prime Minister called Tony Blair who tried to tell everybody he was a Newcastle fan until he made it absolutely clear he'd never been there. And we've got a current Prime Minister, David Cameron.
Did he not say he was at a game that he couldn't possibly have been at or something?
He said he was sitting at a game watching Jackie Milburn, and that was 30 years before they introduced seats into the stadium, and all this kind of stuff. And and the current Prime Minister, David Cameron, even during the election campaign, confused the club he supported with the wrong club just because they played in the same colours. He'd been telling everybody he was an Aston Villa fan and then told people he was a West Ham fan. They play in the same colours, claret and blue, and he got confused. So it's nice to know that you've had a Prime Minister who actually knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, oh no, he does. Our former Prime Minister, John Howard, you ask him anything on cricket and I tell you it will be gospel.
OK, well, he was here today. Now, just getting back to matters Australian. There's a bit of
matters Australian. I should talk about the matter Australian I want to talk about, which is this Johnny Depp story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Sandra, I was a bit disturbed, I'd have to say, to see this development in the dog smuggling saga, where they've now decided to actually charge Johnny Depp's wife. I mean, is this not taking things a little bit too seriously?
It's kind of a farce, really, isn't it, when you think about it? I mean, they're not really dogs, either, those little silkies. I mean, if he's going to be sort of, Jack Sparrow, shouldn't he have something, bigger and a better, more
some kind of lurcher or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. An Irish wolfhound or something fabulous, or a setter or something, rather than the little foxies. But no, the girlfriend, or now the wife, the child bride, as she's being called over here because she's so much younger than him, has been charged. I think everybody would just like to let it go. It should have been dealt with and finished, when they were here. There's an argument by many people that those two little dogs should have been, gone off to doggy the big boneyard in the sky while they were here to not sort of impinge on any of our quarantine.
But he was allowed to fly them back out of the country on a private jet, wasn't he? Which seemed to sort of should have been the end of the matter, really. It's just not a case of some politicians trying to make a bit of a name for themselves.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure there's politicians. I think it might be the quarantine service who have issued the fine.
Right.
Now then, Sandra, I wanted to talk to you about this horrendous situation in which Australians now think it's funny to organise sort of tours of theme parks which involve people really, in reality, being massacred and all this kind of stuff. You know, Ned Kelly-type guys going into the bush killing people, and now they're taking tourists round there to show them where it's all happening.
Well, why wouldn't they do that?
Well, I mean, it's a bit tasteless, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, it is tasteless. It's really tasteless when you think about it. What the tours have been cancelled, though, in the last 3 days, Mike, you'll be pleased to know that the outrage was so sort of overwhelming. They were forced, the touring company that was putting them on has been forced to close it down. Even the New South Wales Premier has stepped up and said, you know, it's an absolute disgrace. It shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And this is where, don't forget, some of your own country people were murdered in this mass murder.
Because it's not just
Ivan Milat.
Right, because it's not just sort of ghost tours like they do these in Edinburgh and they do them in London, and it's kind of, you know.
Yeah, but that was hundreds of years ago.
That's right, and it's all done with a bit of sort of tongue in cheek and all that kind of stuff. But as you say, this is upset people because it's involving murders that are relatively recent. Right?
Well, also, Sandra, it involves people who've come from here. One of the victims was Caroline Clark. She's from Northumberland in England. Another one, Joanne Walters from Maesteg in Wales. And this is as recently as 1992. I mean, you know, the wounds are still very raw.
That's right. And in fact, one of a chap called Paul Anayans, who's an Englishman, he was one of the key witnesses in the case that actually turned this bloke over and managed to sort of put him away for life.
Yeah.
He's one of the worst murderers in Australian history. But it is pretty disgraceful when you think about it, going around to the places where these people were absolutely butchered to death in the most awful manner. And you've got people sort of standing in front of signs saying, "Welcome to the Belangolo State Forest," and with great big cheesy grins on their face. It's not very pleasant.
Well, the equivalent here, Sandra, and I worked on this case as a young reporter, would be taking a bus tour around Yorkshire to the sites of where the Yorkshire Ripper killed his 13 victims, you know.
They wouldn't be allowed to do that here, would they?
Well, they would. It simply wouldn't be acceptable, you know, because the relatives of a lot of the victims, some of whom were prostitutes, some of whom weren't, are still alive. And we, you know, in this country, we sort of, you know, are a little bit aghast that this can be turned into popular cultural tourism.
Yeah, I know, I agree. It's absolutely the same thing here too. A lot of the victims' families in Australia have sort of spoken out and said how upset they are by it. And the fact, basically, you know, they're trampling on people's graves.
So do you think it's probably going to be stopped? And it's just not. I mean, I can't imagine what sort of people would be signing up to go on these tours anyway.
No, I can't.
No, I know. That's the whole thing, isn't it? You've got to think they've got to be extreme bogans, or I don't know what they are, just completely not thinking and no compassion.
Sure. And Sandra, we can't let you go without asking you the perennial question that we asked you throughout last year. How is the search for the plane going? And I mean that quite seriously, because surely now somebody's got to turn around and say, we've got to give up. You're never going to find that aeroplane.
Well, that search has now been put on the back burners, Mike. You rarely hear about it. You only hear about it when sort of another family over in Asia is saying, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's rarely spoken about. It's cost millions and millions of taxpayer dollars here in Australia.
Yeah.
And I don't know when the government is going to put raise the white flag and say, look, we just will never find it.
No, nobody would blame them if they did that. I think the innate sense of decency which the Australian nation, you know, approached this problem, of which they had no responsibility whatsoever, is heartwarming to show that one nation was prepared to go so out of the way to try and assuage, you know, the fears and the horror inflicted on another nation. But nobody in the world would fault Australia now if they said, look, this is just a pointless exercise. It's never going to be resolved.
They just don't even really know where it is, do they? I mean,
no idea.
They have no real clue as to where to start looking.
No, they've got absolutely zero idea of where it is. It's just, it could be, it's worse than the proverbial looking for a needle in a haystack.
Exactly
right.
Yeah.
Well, Sandra, delightful to talk to you again.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll get you on again soon, because obviously the Ashes is going on for a while.
That's right.
And try not to get too happy if the Australians have another great day.
Yeah, go Aussies.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We might not have you on again soon in that case.
Sandra Lee over in Sydney, down under. Funnily enough, one of the guys behind the glass was saying to me, what do you think they call us over here if we call them down under? What do they call us in this part of the world?
Up top?
Up top?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you know? You've been down there, didn't you ask anyone?
No, I didn't. The old country.
The old country?
The old country, I think that's an expression.
Like
I think that's an expression.
But nothing like down under in the opposite kind of direction, in other words.
Well, no, because I don't know, really. I'd be interested in that, if anybody knows the answer to that one. But Australians refer to us as, obviously, as UK,
apart
Great
from
Britain,
Whinging Poms.
Whatever, Whinging Poms, obviously. Yeah, and all that. But no, that'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find out. We've got lots more coming up. We're going to have a look at some of the stories in the papers. We've got the Porky Quiz on Newcastle coming up as well.
Newcastle, man.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. I've got a text here from Ben who says this: Porky, as per usual, is barking up the wrong tree. Mindfulness, which I've taught, is merely a way of resting the mind for a brief period each day so that we declutter our head and see things more clearly.
Yeah.
Just as we shower each day to cleanse the body of built-up dirt, mindfulness meditation is a simple daily routine to cleanse the mind of built-up circling thoughts and worries that distort how we see the world.
Well, I'm sorry. I think that's complete gobbledygook.
Do you?
I think if you stop,
But surely you can sort of, exercise your mind in the same way that you would exercise your body, wouldn't you?
A working day would take about 8 or 9 or sometimes 10 hours of concentrated effort and thought and resolving problems and creating solutions and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
To stop in the middle of the day and say, right, let's now all sit down, children, in the lotus position, cross your legs, stare into the distance.
But you might not have to do it for very long, 5 or 10 minutes maybe.
It's rubbish, because then, I'm sorry, the human body and the human mind is like a vehicle. You warm it up, you get going, you reach a certain speed,
but as
and
Ben
you keep
says,
motoring.
Don't you have to cleanse it once in a while? Don't you have to give it as kind of a change of oil,
but not mid-journey,
an oil filter change?
Not mid-journey. You do that at regular intervals. That's why human beings go on holiday, right? That's why human beings work a 5-day week or a 6-day week.
That's why when you get home, you might have a little bit of a rest and a bit of relaxation.
Exactly, but you don't do it during the working day. That'll just stop the world from going round. And to be honest, I think it's an empty-headed, literally, sorry, that wasn't meant to be a pun, an empty-headed view of how life goes on.
I didn't take it as a pun.
Cater to the weakest possible emotion, i.e., let's have a mindfulness moment. No, let's get on with life.
I don't think that matters at all. I think you're wrong, actually. Now, you said the other day that you were thinking about going back to Chester for the first time in a while.
Yes.
I came across a very strange question, right?
Oh, yeah?
When I was perusing one of the papers the other day.
Oh, yes.
And the question is this, and I don't know whether you can answer it. Can a Welshman still be hanged from a tree if caught in Chester after dark?
What?
Apparently there was a law which said that if somebody from Wales was caught in Chester after dark, they could be hanged from a tree.
I remember going to the Chester Museum as a kid, and that was there's a reference to it there. It's all to do with Offa's Dyke,
right? And
Offa's Dyke is a big ditch that was dug between Wales and England when the wars were going on.
Yeah.
You know, when Longshanks, the guy who was involved in
and Owen Glendower, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, funny enough, that is. Yeah, no, Longshanks was he was the king who was involved in William Wallace, Braveheart. He was also the scourge of the Welsh.
Oh, was he?
And what happened was, Chester was seen to be the border town of England,
right?
And the Welsh incursionists, it was a bit like crossing a border in Northern Ireland into, the Republic,
into
and all
south,
that, like Crossmaglen and South Armagh and all that. And if these guys, the Welsh terrorists, were seen coming across the border and in Chester and didn't go home by nightfall, they were designated spies. And I think one of them was caught, and he was hung, drawn and quartered, and his head was put on a pike at the North Gate in Chester or something like that.
But the question is it still something that could technically happen? Obviously it wouldn't happen, but I mean, one of these laws that perhaps has never actually been got rid of or repealed in any way.
Whenever they bring these up, they always cite the one, don't they, about you can be hanged for taking sheep across Hammersmith Bridge or something, can't you? Or kicking Hammersmith Bridge or something like that.
Yeah.
It's one of those laws that was never repealed because it just went out of fashion.
It's like there's still a treason law, and you can still be hanged for treason, although nobody's really ever been charged with treason for a very long time.
Could be hanged for treason, but it's a lot less important than that. It's just an ancient law that disappeared.
Yeah.
But
the thing that's amazing is that there are still pages in newspapers where people will actually go to the trouble of writing these questions in and trying to get an answer.
No,
and you wonder what sort of person would need to know that. Why would you need to know that?
Well, I don't know. But listen, talking about ancient myths and all that, and this is from your part of the world now.
Okay. Which part of the world?
Scotland.
No, Scotland, okay.
Are you aware of the fact, because I've been aware of this since the beginning of this week, but funny enough, some of tomorrow morning's papers have picked up on it, that the greatest ever Loch Ness hunter has now actually held his hand up and said, right, I admit it doesn't exist.
Funnily enough, Sandy and I were talking about this because she saw it in the papers yesterday, and is he not saying that it's some kind of catfish that the people might be mistaken for a Loch Ness monster?
But the issue, and I heard somebody else talking about this on some radio somewhere, I don't think it was on ours, Who was it? I can't remember now. But anyway...
Was it another one of these radio stations you currently appear on as an expert?
It could have been.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, the big issue is Loch Ness. Is it landlocked or does it have access to the ocean?
Well, it does have sort of underwater passages that they think might lead out into the the ocean.
It doesn't. It's landlocked. I've been through this a million times. Loch Ness is landlocked, and therefore, if there was a monster, a Loch Ness monster... It's only big enough to keep a monster in food for about 3 weeks. Not for 300 years.
Well, that depends, doesn't it? Because
or 3,000 years.
Presumably whatever is in the loch, which can be eaten by a monster, completely regenerates every so often. He can't eat everything.
No, if it was a monster the size of Loch Ness, it would have eaten everything.
I'm not sure you're right about the fact that it
hasn't
hasn't got connections going out into the ocean.
It hasn't. What Loch Ness was created out of the Ice Age, and when the glacier retreated, right, and melted and all that kind of stuff.
You've been up there to Loch Ness. It's amazing. It's a very, very dark body of water. It's the darkest bit of water I've ever seen.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's so deep, and that's why
it's black. I mean, it looks actually black.
The Black Lagoon.
It is like the Black Lagoon, and the creature for the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why, of course, the myth grew up that a monster lives there because it was so deep, and sonar couldn't get down that far until recent years, and all that kind of stuff.
But people have definitely seen things in there that look to them like something very, very strange, and so it could be any number of things. I don't think there's a monster, but I think there could be some kind of creature that's lived there for a very long time.
I think it's a wave pattern, or it's a bit of debris, but I mean, we all know that the original, picture,
the famous picture,
was a spoof.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah,
now,
we know that now. Yeah,
and in those days, of course, with grainy photography and all that, and black and white prints that were done on glass plates and all that, it was easy to do.
Right.
But there is no such thing as Loch Ness monster. There never has been. In fact. Lord Beaverbrook, who owned the Daily Express and Sunday Express for many years, made it the most famous paper in the world, the biggest selling paper in the world.
He was the guy who famously made the Dorman the editor for the day or for a week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. He rang up John Juna, who was the editor, legendary Scottish editor
of the Sunday Express.
To be told that they were splashing. This was on a Saturday night. What are you splashing on tomorrow? What's your lead story, John? And John Juna, a Scotsman himself, obviously, said, we think now we have absolute evidence that there is a Loch Ness monster because we've got some new research.
Which is a great story for the Sunday Express in those days.
Of course it was. Fantastic story. And Lord Beaverbrook immediately told him to pulp the paper. And anything relating to a Loch Ness monster must never appear. He said the Loch Ness monster does not exist.
But why was he so sort of adamant about it?
I don't know, because he was a Canadian, Lord Beaverbrook, who came over here, became a naturalised Briton, and became War Minister during the
Minister of Propaganda, wasn't he?
No, he was War Minister. Yeah. He was War Minister during the Second World War. He had to make sure that the RAF had enough Spitfires and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? War munitions minister. And he said there is no Loch Ness monster. There never has been a Loch Ness monster.
But why would that bother him?
Have you gone mad?
Yeah, but why would that bother him?
I don't know, but I mean, maybe he'd, I don't know, with his vast wealth, because he was one of the richest men in the world, maybe he'd financed some research years before or something like that. I don't know. Nobody knows, but he told him to pulp the paper.
But you would have thought a paper like that would have sold in absolute millions in those days as well.
Well, it did. They used to sell...
about Express, 5 or 6 million or something.
The Daily Express used to sell 4.2 million a day, and I think the Sunday Express sold more than that. But anyway, of course, nobody got the Sunday Express until midday the next day, because the whole thing had to be scrapped and all that kind of stuff.
Because normally those kind of stories are the phone call from the proprietor who's a bit of a sort of eccentric, who says, I want you to spend absolutely every penny that we've got on trying to prove that the Loch Ness monster exists. You remember the story about Generoso Pope, the guy that owned the National Enquirer? He sent one of the ex-Fleet Street guys who'd gone to work for him in Florida around the world to find Shangri-La. He became obsessed with Shangri-La. He said, Shangri-La, I am convinced, exists. It's somewhere...
like Nepal or somewhere like that?
Yeah, it's either in Nepal or it's in Burma or it's somewhere up by the Arctic Circle. Yeah. And the guy spent a year literally going to all these places that he thought it might be. Yeah. And eventually came back to Lantana in Florida and said, I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Pope.
There is no Shangri-La.
We haven't found it.
So what did he do, fire him?
No, he said, go round again. He said, I want you to go back. And he sent him around the world again. So this guy spent 2 years having a fantastic time, living off expenses, going to all these incredibly
trying to find Shangri-La.
Very exotic
parts of the world. What did he do? Like once a month, send a bulletin back to Generoso saying, no sign of Shangri-La yet.
Still not here. Send more money.
Yeah, send more money,
basically, which was the way it all worked.
The best, my favourite ever story about the National Enquirer, which was an institution in America, wasn't it? I mean, it's not anymore, I don't think. But
now it's gone the way of a lot of these kind of publications.
Exactly. But I mean, in the fraction
of what it used to sell.
Yeah, but in the days before there was digital television, the days before you get instant access to news, it used to break the most amazing stories about showbiz stars and everything else. And I remember, that guy who was in Psycho, the
guy who was running the Bates Hotel.
Yeah, was his name Anthony Perkins?
Anthony
Perkins. And most amazing story. And that film was made by the legendary Alfred Hitchcock, shower scene and all that. I mean, one of the most famous films ever. Anthony Perkins is one of the most famous actors.
Still a scary movie even now.
Oh, very scary. So I saw him being interviewed on television in America, in the 80s or something like that. And he was one of the first people to come out publicly to say he had AIDS, when AIDS was the most frightening disease in the world. AIDS, HIV, had no cure or anything like that. Don't go near people who've got AIDS in case you get it and all that kind of stuff. So the interviewer said, it must have been very traumatic when you found out that you had AIDS. He said, yes, it was. He said, and how did you actually find out you had AIDS? He said, I read it on the front of the National Enquirer.
So they got it
and the interviewer said,
did.
Sorry, what do you mean? He said, well, I went to the hospital for some tests for something completely different. He said, and apparently they took some blood samples for me and they sent them away to a laboratory. And the bloke in the laboratory found out I had AIDS, and he rang up the National Enquirer and told them. And he said, well, what happened to you? He said, no, they didn't tell me about the blood. They didn't want me to know. It was too frightening.
And there was no kind of law against that at that time, probably, either.
No. So old Anthony Perkins, who wasn't feeling too well and had been to see his doctor, had some blood tests, walking down to his newsstand, bought a copy of the National Enquirer to see splashed all over the front and the first 3 pages, Anthony Perkins, psycho actor, dying of AIDS.
Dear me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a blow,
it was,
isn't it?
Yeah, it was an incredible kind of time, and that was when they had these amazing photographers that would throw themselves on people's cars to get pictures and all kinds of stuff, and it was run basically by a lot of ex-Fleet Street guys, wasn't it?
It was. In fact, another story about that was when Terry Willows, was it Terry Willows?
Terry Willows, yeah. You don't have to give his name away. You can.
I'm not sure he's still around, Terry, but he's a good guy, still is, if he's still alive, and if not, then
if he's not,
rest in peace,
Yeah, thank you very much.
And he went to work for them, and they got involved somehow in securing the image of Elvis in his coffin.
Yeah.
And they put it onto T-shirts. They were going to make
pillows
millions.
Or something, right?
Hey?
Was it pillows as well?
Pillows and T-shirts, and they were going to make millions out of this image. The problem was the image had been stolen, and as Terry's sitting at his desk in the National Enquirer office, getting on with it, a bloke walks up to him and says, "Is your name Terry Willows?" He said, "Yeah." The guy draws a gun and says, "You're under arrest." He was from the FBI, and he was arresting him for being involved, allegedly, in the theft of the Elvis image.
I remember that story,
Yeah.
Frightening.
Pretty frightening.
Absolutely frightening.
Pretty frightening.
Now, coming up, we've got the Porky Quiz. So,
Terry fainted, by the way. That was the story.
What, he fainted?
Well, he stood up from his desk, the guy pulled the gun, and he went, all over the place.
No, I'm not surprised. Anyway, we'll have more tales from the dark side of journalism coming up. We'll also be talking about whether you should fly in a plane facing the person opposite you.
Oh, God, I wouldn't want to face you in an aeroplane.
Well, I wouldn't want to be on a plane when you do at all. I mean, you'd drink the thing dry, wouldn't you?
No, well, you would. You drink. I mean, the great story is that you can...
I'm not sure we've got time for another great story.
You can relieve 30 pounds of weight in a jumbo jet flying from London to New York simply by drinking at the sort of rate that you do on the way across the Atlantic.
What do you mean, relieve 30 pounds of weight?
Well, because the bottles are empty by the time you get to New York. You've drunk it all.
Oh, I see. So it could actually be saving fuel.
Yeah, saving fuel,
I
absolutely.
don't see how that would work. That doesn't work at all in physics.
Yeah, it
You've
does.
got that one
completely... No, I haven't.
You've got that completely
I haven't.
wrong.
It's osmosis.
Absolute nonsense. Anyway, there'll be more nonsense coming up, and the Porky Quiz on Newcastle, which has been set by some real Newcastle experts, so I hope you've boned up on it all. Also, of course, you can tweet us at the two mics. You can tweet Mr. Parry at Mike Parry 8, and you can send us a text as well to 81089. Lots more criticism coming in of you and your scientific knowledge.
You what?
There is, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
right now, though,
it's the no good.
There's no time to keep babbling on.
It's the ne'er-do-gooders who always attack me.
Yeah, whoever they are.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
Two Mics, there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, by which time, of course, the second day of the Open will be underway at St Andrews as well. There's going to be some terrible weather up there, Mr. Parry, so it might be a lot more difficult for all the players to keep under par, I'd have to say.
Funnily enough, you talk about the weather. We're going north on Saturday, as you've already indicated. It's 5 degrees colder in Newcastle than it is in London.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So you're saying you're going to like it up there?
I'm going to love it.
It's been very muggy, hasn't it, over the last few few days.
It's going to be very
I'm not going to bring a
compatible.
coat or anything. It's not going to be that cold, is it?
Well, I will take a jacket.
Will you be
whatever,
producing your normal sort of sartorial elegance?
On stage?
On stage.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, my normal gear.
You've already got the outfit out and ready, have you?
Absolutely. Now, listen, got all these tweets rolling in, so I want to just read a few of them out. First of all, I'm being taken to task about me saying that, Wales don't play cricket.
Right.
I meant the country Wales, OK? Now, I
know
they
play as part of the England and Wales cricket board, don't they?
Yes, of course they do. But you know, people like James are pointing out to me, go on, Porky, how about Glamorgan CCC, County Cricket Club, fantastic club with great tradition. Of course they are. And they've contributed many great cricketers to the cricketing
and they
tapestry
play occasionally,
of England and Wales.
But also they play occasionally as a one-day international team as well, don't they?
Exactly. That's what I'm about to say. In some tournaments or something, you see Wales, see people with Wales written on their backs. But what I'm saying is they don't play Test cricket. That's the only point I'm making. You played under the guise of the England and Wales Cricket Board, and Welshmen play in that team. I've got no problem with that. I'm just trying to say the two teams get together. There is no individual identity for Wales as a Test team. That's all.
But it would be incorrect to say they don't actually play cricket in Wales, because that's not a true statement.
No, but I didn't say that. I said I meant Wales as a country don't play Test cricket. That's all. So that one's out the way. Now
how about this one from Roy, who says, wrong again, Porky. In the east from Loch Ness, there is a few miles of river that join the sea at Inverness. It is not absolutely landlocked.
It is landlocked because the length of water you're talking about is so narrow and so shallow and so nothingness that nothing could get from the sea to the loch. It's as simple as that.
Well, you don't know that.
No,
I do.
Know
I've
what
studied
the creature,
it all. If there is a creature, it might actually be. It might actually be very, very thin. It might be like a very, very elongated eel or something, mightn't it?
No, it's not, honestly. Believe me, it is so narrow, it's virtually a ditch. Now then, welcome here to the North East on Saturday from Ian. Porkmeister, how Porky ye gan nail the quiz tonight? From the Porchmeister, good luck.
Why are you reading that in such a strange accent?
Well, that was Geordie.
Oh, was it?
That's
well, can you translate that as well? Because I'd like to know what it actually means.
Yeah, it says, hello, Porky. You can win the quiz tonight from the perspective of the Porkmeister. Good luck, OK?
Well, so how many would you consider to be a suitable score to call it a win, then? Because we don't really talk about it as a win or a loss, do we? We talk about it in terms of how many out of 10.
I'm predicting a 7 tonight. 7 or 8.
7 or 8 out of 10.
7 or 8, yeah. I think you'll be, amazed, really, with my knowledge of the North East.
Now, there are some people who think that you are an expert on the North East, and there are other people who maybe have their doubts.
Right.
Would you like to hear one of them?
Yeah, sure.
OK.
Hi, this is Everton legend. Oh, I'm a legend, am I? Peter Reid. And I have a message for Everton's biggest fan, Mike Porky Parry, who won a bet off me not so long ago. Stop cheating on the quiz. And Mike Graham is not gerrymandering the questions. I think you will get 2 out of 10 tonight.
Oh, that's very nice.
A very wise man, isn't he?
Reedy?
Yeah, Reedy. Yeah.
Oh,
well, he was in
nice
TalkSport a few hours ago, and he heard that you were going to be quizzed on the North East, which he knows very well. And so, what do you make of that then?
Nice.
He's actually telling you that I have not gerrymandered the quiz, and he reckons you'll get 2 out of 10, which is one less than I thought you'd get.
I think Peter was being diplomatic there. It was very nice of him to get involved. Peter, if you're listening or you listen to the podcast, thanks very much, mate. I hope you're well. He is, of course, an Everton legend.
He is, of course. So what about this bet that he says that he lost to you recently?
I'm trying to remember what that was, actually.
Really?
Because I wouldn't take money off Peter Reid under any circumstances, no matter what it was. So I'm not sure what that is. But nevertheless, it's great to hear from.
Well, maybe you should get in touch with him and collect some money off him, because maybe he hasn't actually paid you yet.
Well, no, I couldn't possibly. You can't do that with a legend, can you, in your own lifetime? Peter and I went to a quarter-final once at Goodison. I think we're playing Middlesbrough in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. And we're both guests in the box of the Liverpool Post and Echo, along with Peter's brother, who I think is an accountant or an architect. He's a professional man anyway, very, very nice chap. And we had a marvellous day, and it was bitterly cold, so we watched it from inside the box, not outside, and then a few sherbets afterwards, and it was great. He's great company. I always like watching football matches in the company of a former professional because they see things you don't.
It's a very different experience, isn't it?
They're sitting there and,
it's a bit like when you're at a game and you decide for whatever reason to watch one player. Which I sometimes quite like to do. Particularly if it's somebody like Messi or Ronaldo or somebody incredible like that. Yeah. And you actually just watch one player and see what he does while the rest of it's all going on around him.
Yeah, it's small things. I was sitting next to a professional footballer once, and they were lining up a free kick, and then the guy leaned over and said, so-and-so's taking this, and he was loitering away in the background. Right. And I said, how do you know that? He said, I've just seen him clean his right boot on the back of his left sock.
Right.
And little things like that, you know. And he was absolutely right. The guy stepped up and took the kick and scored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Things like that, you see.
Amazing.
But
Now,
you wouldn't know about observation like that,
well,
Mike,
I
because
would.
you don't have attention to detail.
Well,
like
I do
me.
actually have great attention to detail, and I'm going to ask you about something now that I know you don't do very often, because you don't really get on a plane and go on holiday very often. But there's a French company that's come up with an idea which says, a bit like on the trains, is it not better to actually have people sitting opposite each other on a plane as they do on a train? Because apparently they'll be able to get more people in, squeezing in more and more people into these new cabins, right? Because that's what they're trying to do, make more money.
Yeah. I think it's even worse than that. From what I understand, because I heard about this the other day, and I went and had a look at it on the old website or something and see what the plan was. It's not even like a train where you're facing each other, a commuter train. The seats actually interlock.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I'm facing that way, right? Yeah. But the knees of the person facing the other way are touching my knees.
Yeah, but that's what happens
on
trains.
To the side. No, to the side.
What do you mean to the side?
What I'm saying is, you're not sitting directly opposite somebody. The person who's facing you is like at your right arm, if you see what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Do you see what I mean?
So they're actually kind of almost...
They're interlocking.
So you're sitting slightly behind where they're sitting.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's not enough room for both you to put your legs down.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, it's a bit like in some places, like British Airways do this in their business class, don't they?
Yeah.
And I've always thought I wouldn't actually fancy that, where you're kind of sitting opposite somebody else and your feet are kind of where their head is and they're looking at you and you're looking at them.
Yeah, there's a wall in between in this arrangement, and there's even a little canopy you can pull over, right to give yourself some privacy.
Yeah, but it's still a kind of strange arrangement.
It's horrible. I hate it. I totally agree with you. The days of flying across the Atlantic when you had this great big broad seat and there was only one person next to you and enough room in front of you to be able to get up and walk out of that row or walk back into it have gone.
Well, one of the things they're saying that this will eradicate, which is what happens, I know you don't very often fly economy, is when you sit down and there's that sort of terrible moment when your elbows touch.
That's
and you don't know who's going to be able to kind of have which bit of the armrest.
That's right.
Because you can't put two arms on there.
Shocking.
It is awful. The other scam that they all operate, because I've had this problem a couple of times, I've had it again this year, is what they say, if you're travelling as a family of four, you can't have a guarantee that you'll all be sitting together.
No.
No matter how hard you try, no matter how early you try and book the seat, the only way you can do it is to pay them more money.
Yeah.
They'll actually charge you like an extra 40 quid per seat.
That's disgraceful.
To make sure that the four of you can sit together.
That's disgraceful,
ridiculous,
isn't it? That is disgraceful, once you've paid your fare and all that kind of stuff. I mean, wouldn't you think there'd be an element of humanity there?
Well, you would think so.
You've got two little kids. Of course they want to be with their parents, and they don't want to be with just one parent. What about the families? And we've worked with a colleague in the past who used to practice this all the time. So flying across the Atlantic, club or first for mummy and daddy, because they're in a position to be able to get upgraded, right, because of the jobs they do.
Yeah, or sometimes they pay for it as well.
Well, maybe sometimes they pay for it. But children not allowed in club or first class, so they sit down the back, abandon their kids and put them down the back.
They're allowed in it if you pay for the ticket, but if you are getting upgraded, they don't allow children. Well, I had that situation once when I was flying on American Airlines, I think it was.
Yeah.
And my daughter had she was just about 2.
Right.
And we got on the plane and we'd been upgraded. And after we had the first glass of champagne, we were sitting in business, and suddenly this woman with a clipboard came on and said, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Graham, can I have a word?" She said, "I'm terribly sorry, we can't upgrade your child, and so I'm afraid one of you can stay up here in business, but the other one will have to go back into economy with the child."
Right.
So, of course, we both had to go back, because we couldn't have really done it any other way.
No, exactly,
Could have been a very difficult moment.
That being downgraded on a plane, that must be agony.
Yeah, I know.
Just when you think you've settled into the plush seat, the free champagne, getting yourself, settled in for a gorgeous trip across the Atlantic or something, then all of a sudden you're downgraded. I've never been downgraded. People wouldn't downgrade me, Mike.
Well, I didn't have to be downgraded. I could have stayed there, but I didn't want to do that, because that would have been very selfish.
People would never downgrade me.
Wouldn't they?
I've never been downgraded. Upgraded, yes. Downgraded, no.
Well, there's still time for that.
It just doesn't happen to me.
There is still time for that.
It just wouldn't happen to me. I mean, do you remember the system in the 80s?
We haven't got time for another story.
When you could buy a book of stamps, couldn't you? And automatically upgrade yourself. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, you could. You could buy a book of these stamps for $150, and it was 6 stamps, so it cost, I don't know, $25 each or something. And you could actually use them as like an upgrade ticket on any flight that you wanted.
Really?
That was American Airlines, yeah, definitely.
Well, I never did that.
I did it all the time, of course.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. The Porky Quiz is coming very, very soon.
Hey! Oh, me lads, you should have seen me ganning. Weapons on the open road, jumping and standing. All the lads and lasses there and all the smiling faces, galling down the Scotswood Road. To see the blading races, to see the blading races.
What on earth are you doing now?
Broon's a rune, man. I've got my broon, it's a rune.
What is that you're drinking? That's not even Newcastle Brown Ale.
Broon's a rune.
That is not Newcastle Brown Ale. Look,
I'm doing from the
is
tune.
Newcastle Brown Ale. What on earth are you thinking?
I'm doing from the
That's
tune.
like sacrilege. You can't drink that. You've got to drink that instead.
What's that?
That's Newcastle Brown Ale. That's
But I'm
proper
doing
stuff.
from the tune.
You're not from the tune.
I'm from the tune.
No, we're going to
doing
the
from
tune.
the tune, Bonnie lad.
We're going to the tune.
Peas pudding
You're
sandwich,
not from
Bonnie lad.
the tune. You're not from the tune. We're going to the tune.
Looking canny.
When are we going to the tune?
Looking canny.
When are we going?
Going to tune on July.
Allow me to translate. July the 18th, we're
Doing the
going
tune.
to the Tyne Opera House.
Doing the tune.
In Newcastle.
Doing
the
the
two mics
tune.
live. I hope to God you're not going to be dressed like that.
Ganning it down the Scotswood Road. To see the blading
This is what I have to
races.
put up with. Unbelievable. That was, of course, a little video that we made a little while ago to tell people that we were going up there. But, I mean,
Absolutely.
the problem with all of that, right, is that you can see it on Two Mics TV on YouTube and you can see it on the website as well. But the problem was, when I said to you, when are we going?
Yes.
You actually couldn't remember, could you? You said July,
yeah, well,
but you couldn't think of the actual date.
No, it wasn't that at all. I just didn't want to take too much of the attention off yourself.
Is that
because
right?
I thought that you were dressed in a suit
Yes.
and you looked rather sophisticated. I thought I'd let you actually announce the time and the venue.
Are you going to do something like that when you're up there? Are you going to do like a live performance of the Bladen races?
No, not at all. You know, people should know that what we do up there is the pitter-patter, rattle, rock and roll of the relationship
pitter-patter.
between you and I.
Yes.
But we don't actually go there impersonating Geordies.
No,
that
no,
would be insulting.
that would probably be a mistake, wouldn't
Of course it would, because the Geordies are the Geordies, a fine culture of people. No way in the world would I try to pass myself off as one of those, or try to take the mickey out of them by impersonating them.
No, of course not.
No
And
way.
many of them will be coming up absolutely to encourage you, presumably either not to retire there or to retire there.
Yeah, I think there's a will. There's a will to have as much of the present-day culture of the land in the northeast of England as possible, and I put myself in that category.
Well, considering that you lived there, presumably
Absolutely.
you'll be showing me around at some point, either in the afternoon or maybe on Sunday.
Maybe.
I don't know what the plan will be.
Maybe.
Are
We'll
you
see.
planning to come straight back down? What have you got going on Sunday?
On Sunday, I will be coming back. I have commitments in the southeast, I'm afraid.
Commitments?
So, yeah, I'll be getting the old rattler back.
What sort of commitments have you got?
Well, I can't go into it. I mean, you know.
Family commitments? Work commitments?
I've got a Sunday lunch that I've got to sort out.
Going
and
on
that
some
sort of
other
thing.
radio station?
Well, it's not something I need to get into tonight. First of all, we need to give 100% to the people, the fine people of Newcastle,
Of course.
on Saturday night at the Tyne Opera House,
Yeah.
okay? And it's going to be a rip-roaring night. What I love about that Tyne Opera House is the bar is right next to the auditorium.
I don't know how many times you've said that.
Well,
I think
I
you've
like-
said it practically every single day for about 2 weeks.
I
haven't
like
you?
telling people because, you know, we always like having a drink with the audience afterwards, don't we? And it'd be easy to do it there. And some theatres we've played in, we've had to walk literally miles. No, not miles, but the underground quarry of tunnels at theatres. Sometimes you get lost and all that kind of stuff. It's easy up on Tyneside.
Yeah, it really is. Now, as far as the travelling arrangements going up there, you're going up on the train, aren't you? Have you sorted out a ticket for that? Because remember, you had a bit of a nightmare getting up there the last time.
No,
have you got a ticket yet?
All
Or is it
sorted.
all done?
All sorted. I'm very, very well organised. Honestly, not a problem whatsoever. And in fact, you know, I like travelling on trains up and down England because you see England at its best from a train window whizzing through
And
the
have you
English
worked out
countryside.
which side of the train you're going to sit on when you go into Newcastle? Because there was some dispute about which the best view was. You said the left side, and other people said the right side.
Yeah, but you get a view from both sides. The train bears round to the left. So before it bears round to the left, you see ahead what you're looking at.
Right.
But if you sit on the right-hand side, as you go over high level, which is the bridge that carries the train, you see the Tyne Bridge in all its glory on the right.
Oh, okay.
So it really doesn't matter. But it's a spectacular city, you know, based on one of the world's most famous rivers, the River Tyne, where they used to build ships and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And it's going to be a great privilege to be there. Can't wait to see everybody.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's any problems with the trains as far as industrial disputes or
I hope
cancellations or weather problems or anything like that.
I hope not. By the way, talking about trains, and you know, you sit on trains, and sometimes you have to stand on trains. We had to stand on that train going to Cheltenham that time, if you remember, because we got a cattle
Well, it only
truck.
had 2 carriages, I think,
It was
didn't it?
terrible.
3 carriages,
cattle
something
truck
like that.
train, and we had a first-class ticket. But remember, we've said many times in this studio, we've seen these reports which say, oh, people who sit around all day in offices get thrombosis and all that, and you should change your work style and stand up using your laptop.
Yeah, exactly.
And that officers...
Well, you should move around anyway, shouldn't you?
But officers should basically provide desks at chest level fixed to the wall so you can stand there and use your laptop.
Yeah.
Well, I came across a report yesterday, researching all this, saying too much standing is now bad for you.
Too much standing?
People who stand in their jobs are going to get coronaries and all that kind of stuff.
Any kind of, sort of sedentary position, whether you're sitting or standing, the whole point is to just walk around those, isn't it? So that you can move freely and make sure that your muscles are all going to get exercise.
It says here, people who stand too much now are more liable to get health problems such as obesity and cancer. I mean, honestly, every medical report you get contradicts another one, doesn't it?
That's the problem.
Right, no,
that is the problem. I mean, you could come out with one of these reports every single day, all of which would say that you have a higher risk of this or that or the other. And, in the end, I don't think people actually take much of it in anymore.
Yeah. Up to half the world's employers spend 75% or more of their working day on their feet, right? From those working in agriculture, construction, assembly lines, waitressing or in shops, retail, OK?
But in those kind of jobs, you're moving around quite a bit, aren't you?
Well, this says, a study has found that while the short-term effects are aching joints and sore feet, in the long term they could suffer painful back problems or permanent muscle damage, OK? Companies should also be aware that they lose out thanks to increased sickness and lower productivity, according to scientists from the Swiss University...
The Swiss University?
Of ETH.
ETH?
In Zurich.
Really?
In Zurich.
ETH?
We talked about Zurich the other day, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Now, let me tell you, I mean...
they finally extradited one of those guys from Zurich.
They have, actually, yeah.
Just the one, though.
The one FIFA guy to America, that's right. Now, I mean, look, you look at these reports, mate, you take them with a pinch of salt. Researchers warn that current timetables for workers who have to stand to do their jobs are not adequate to combat the risk of long-term musculoskeletal disorders, right? Around 7
how are you going to make a waitress actually do the job without standing up?
Well, absolutely right. Around 7 million workers in Britain spend 4 hours or more each day standing. Now, I'll tell you one job what I do worry about, right? And this is absolutely true. The guy who cuts my hair runs his own salon.
Right.
He's just actually, only in the last 2 years, sort of taken it over.
This is down in Stockbroker Belt,
This is down in Stockbroker
Not
Belt.
in the King's Road or anywhere.
No. This is down in Stockbroker Belt.
Right.
And Chelsea footballers go in there.
And
there's a golfer who goes in there, parks his black Aston Martin outside all the time. This golfer's never won anything, but he's a golfer on the European PGA circuit.
Oh, okay.
And you don't have to win anything. You just make great money.
They do make good money.
He
has to keep making a lot of cuts, though. He has to be quite close. He must not keep getting kicked out on a Friday.
Well, you always know he's there because he's got this black drop-top Aston Martin, beautiful car, sort of thing that I will eventually treat myself
to. You see
or something like that.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, definitely. But anyway, the point of my story is... This used to be a family concern, and then the lad decided to buy out the family, like his father and his uncle who were getting older, and so he bought them out. So it's now his own business, okay? And he's very enthusiastic about it. But sometimes I go past there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I see him standing behind one of his customers, clients, whatever you want to call them.
He cuts their hair at 7 in the morning?
Yes, he does, yeah, and he's doing their hair. He does, honestly, I've seen him going past there at 7 in the morning. People come in, especially if they're, for instance, it's a wedding day or something like that, you know what I mean? The hair doing
so it's like a bespoke hairdressers.
It is a bespoke hairdressers, yeah, absolutely.
Now, how often do you go there?
Oh, I don't know, about once a month or something like that, yeah. But
look like it.
No, it does.
When's the last time you went there, then?
I might go there tomorrow, actually, ahead of Newcastle.
Yeah, you like to get your hair cut for a show, don't you?
I do, yeah. Now, the point I'm making is that sometimes I might be passing back the other way, having
7 o'clock at night.
7 o'clock at night, and I still see him on his feet, still doing it.
Right.
Now, it occurred to me...
Well, it may be that he's just got a different kind of day where he doesn't do much during the middle of the day, he just does it at the beginning and the end.
No, he's busy all day long, because I've been in there, sitting there saying, how's business?
And doesn't he have anybody else working
Very busy. There? Yeah, he has 2 or 3 other people working there, but I mean, he has people who come and only want him to look after them, you know what I mean? Like, all this kind of stuff. He puts, these people who have all these daft silver stuff put in their hair all the time. I've never worked out what that is, have you?
Well, it's usually something to do with colouring, I think.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Yeah,
and there's all these people sitting around with all this silver paper in
Takes
their
a long
hair.
time, that, as well. You sit there for hours.
Honestly, I mean, Baker Foyle must make a fortune out of hairdressers, the amount of silver that women put into their hair. But anyway... And sometimes 7 o'clock at night, I see him still standing there, and I say, how's it? Oh, it's great, yeah, very busy and all that kind of stuff. But he is literally on his feet all day. Now, I'm thinking to myself...
Well, he probably sits down at some point, doesn't he?
No, I've never seen him sitting down. I have never, ever seen him sitting down.
He doesn't sit down, though, just because you've never seen it.
Well, it's a place that's on the high street. It's got a big open window. I walk past maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I never see him sitting down.
Does he not have one of those stools that he can sit on as
well?
No,
he's always standing
up. It's very
up.
unusual for you to have any kind of compassion for anybody else, though.
All I'm thinking is that boy's back's going to go one of these days, because if you stand up as many hours as he does, believe me, it could be a real, well, I was going to say a pain in the ass, but
you would worry about that, of course, because you wouldn't be able to cut your hair. that would be the impact it would have on you.
Not so much. I just have admiration for him. I mean, although, look, if it's dangerous sitting down, at least you and I are only sitting down for 3 hours.
True.
For the rest of the day, I'm up and around and active. Maybe I might be sitting in the car for half an hour or
Also, we're
something
not
like
going
that.
to sit for 3 hours solidly. You do get up and sort of walk around.
Of course you do. Of course you do. You get up and go out and have a cigarette in between breaks,
Occasionally.
Obviously not good for your health, but that's your responsibility. And I, of course, constantly in and out of the studio, researching
checking your various information devices,
checking the information devices, ducking and weaving, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
You haven't brought any kind of crib notes in with you for the Newcastle quiz,
Of course not.
Because I just thought I should ask you that question.
No, of course not. I mean, I've never done that. That one accusation, that shocking accusation, which literally challenged the entire integrity of my whole life, was very badly thought out and rebounded on you with venom.
Is that what you think?
Yes.
Well, it's time for the Porky Quiz, so
great.
It may well be time to just check the general area around you, make sure there isn't anything there. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to trust you on this one. I'm going to take your word for it, which is probably foolish of me, but we'll see how it goes. The Porky Quiz on Newcastle coming up next.
Yep.
We are the two mics, and it is time for the Porky Quiz, one of the highlights of the week. A lot of people very eagerly anticipating it, of course. And as per usual, the questions have been put together by independent quizmasters, and they've actually had to draft in an expert from Newcastle, I'm told, to come up with some of these questions.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let's get it right, obviously.
Sometimes you say, well, I can't believe there'd be enough questions about a particular subject, but I think they're reasonably varied. I'm just looking at them now. And as ever, of course, if you get one correct, you will hear this sound. If you get one wrong, you will hear this sound.
How Porky? I like that. Yeah,
that is very good, isn't it? Now, are you ready for question number one?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Question number one in the Newcastle quiz: which Beatles song was written in a Newcastle hotel room after a gig at the Majestic Ballroom in June 1963?
Good God! Majestic Ballroom.
Putting together two of your favourite subjects.
Yeah. Beatles song 63, so it must have come out the end of 63, 64. I wonder if it was Please Please Me, just thinking aloud. I wonder if it was Paperback Writer, because they could have been reading a paperback because they were on tour. Or I wonder if it was Please Please Me, Paperback Writer, or I Feel Fine. Could be an I Feel Fine,
Are you still thinking aloud?
Thinking aloud.
Giving me an answer?
Thinking aloud. I think the answer to that one, and this is not a story about, this is not a question about Newcastle, of course.
Well, it is.
It's another ridiculous question about songwriting. I'm going to say Paperback Writer. How Porky?
Incorrect.
What?
Do you want to hear what it was?
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous?
That's ridiculous. That I know where that song was written.
Where was it written?
That song was written in the Decca Studios down in London.
Well, not according to the experts from Newcastle.
That's absolute garbage. It's a garbage answer.
Question number two.
Yeah?
When was Newcastle Brown Ale first sold to the public?
Newcastle Brown Ale sold to the public, and the first time it was brewed up there.
Why are you talking in that ridiculous voice?
Bruins are ruined, get it doon, right? 1858.
Is that
Porky?
I'm afraid that's incorrect. Right. The correct answer is 1927 it was launched.
1927? That's rubbish.
It's not rubbish.
Rubbish.
Absolutely
that's
true.
Post the First World War.
Yes. Question number three. In the 1986 World Cup, the 3-0 defeat of Poland was accomplished with 5 outfield players from the northeast in the team. Can you name them?
Hang on, 1986 World Cup?
1986 World Cup.
No, that
3-0 defeat of Poland.
That was in Mexico.
5 outfield players.
From the northeast. And you want me to name 3 of the 5?
I think if you get 3 of the 5, you'll definitely get a point for that.
Outfield players?
Yeah.
1986? Now then, 1986. That was now. Alan Shearer came later in the 90s. Right, 1986. Outfield players from the northeast. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you who they were now. I'll tell you who they were. Did they play for northeast clubs, or were they just their origins in the northeast?
It says they were from the northeast.
From the northeast.
That's what it means.
Okay. Okie dokie. Right. Well, I reckon... When was it? 86? 86. Right. I reckon one of them was Peter Beardsley.
Correct.
Right. 86. How, Amon? Bruins a roon down the tune. Who else would have been Geordie boy?
You're going to say that for every answer?
No, hang on. Peter Beardsley. Now then, the others, outfield players. Oh, I know. It could have been the fullback Alan Kennedy.
He's not on the list.
He's not on the list. Right, hang on. Alan Kennedy, because he's a Geordie. Right, let me see. Could have been that big centre-half. No, he wasn't a Geordie. Midfield players, midfield strikers, 86. Hang on. Lineker was playing for England in 86, but he's not a Geordie.
So he's not one of your answers.
He's not one of the answers.
We'll have to hurry you on this
one. All right, hang on. It's coming to me. I know another Geordie from up there was who was it now? The Middlesbrough player. No. Sunderland player. Could have been Sunderland player. I know. Rob. There was a Rob, wasn't there?
Rob who?
Rob. You know who I'm talking about.
No, Rob who?
Yeah, Rob, what's his name? Rob, he played for Newcastle.
Rob? You think of Rob Lee?
Rob Lee.
Incorrect.
Right, okay, yeah, right.
You've only got to get two more.
I know. Geordies.
Thank goodness I didn't ask you for five of them.
No, I'm trying to think of the Geordies were, I'm sure Alan Kennedy was one of them, but
he's not.
So not, okay. Right, how much more time have I got?
You've got 10 more seconds.
Oh, dear. Let me think. Trying to think who they played for, the big teams at the time.
5 seconds.
Michael Carrick. No, it wasn't Michael
Carrick?
No.
1986?
No, he's
Howie Porky. I'm afraid that's at 0. You could have had Trevor Stephen.
Trevor Stephen played for Everton.
You could have had Terry Fenwick.
You
could have had Brian Robson.
I thought Robbo.
And you could have had Chris Waddle.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid you haven't got that one right either. So that's none out of 3. Question number 4.
Yeah.
Newcastle is famous for inventions: the turbine engine, the train, the electric light bulb. But which of these were also a product of this fine city? Lucasade, the windscreen wiper, and Rolos.
I would say, is it only one of them?
Well, it could be more than one.
Oh, right, okay. I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, Rolos and windscreen wipers.
Incorrect.
Shut it out. What?
Howie
Porky. Was it?
It's all of them.
Well, there you go. Well, windscreen wipers and Rolos are included.
Yeah, well, so you got 2 out of 3.
No. You said which of them, and I
Which
said
of
yes. But I hadn't finished answering the question.
I can give you half a point for that.
Well, that's a bit mean.
Half out of 4.
Okay.
Question number 5. Bit of history here.
Yeah.
The first Tyne-Wear derby was the Civil War.
Right.
The Battle of Bolden Hill in 1644.
Yes.
It ended in a stalemate. Was Newcastle on the side of the King or on the side of Parliament?
It was on the side of the King.
Correct.
Thank you.
Finally, you got one right. 1 out of 5. Yeah. Question number 6.
1.5.
1.5.
Thank you.
Greggs is possibly Newcastle's best-known brand, purveyor of pasties, sausage rolls, etc.
Yes.
Which district of Newcastle, the childhood home of Alan Shearer, was included in the baker's original name? So it was Greggs of somewhere.
Greggs of... it's not Gateshead, because that was... think aloud. It's not Gateshead, because that's Gaz's... Greggs of... it's not Biker, and I think it could be Jesmond. No, I'm just thinking aloud. Could be Wall's End. It's Wall's End. Wall's End. Porky.
Incorrect.
No.
It's Greggs of Gosforth.
Gosforth. Oh, Gosforth's not a district of Newcastle.
Well, it is.
Gosforth's a separate town.
Question number 7.
It's a separate town. Gosforth Park.
This was put together by a Newcastle
Gosforth Park's where the
expert.
race course is.
Question number 7.
Yeah.
The Big Market is the traditional home of the young Geordies and their weekend parties.
Not anymore.
What is big?
What do you mean, big?
What's it called after the Big Market? B-I-G-G. What is big?
Big is the... It's where...
You must have known this when you worked there, sure.
Yeah. It's where the farmers brought their sheep. It was a sheep.
Porky.
What do you mean? This is what it was.
They've gone a bit early there. I'm not sure if he was thinking aloud.
I was thinking aloud. I was thinking aloud.
Okay.
It's where thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I got an apology from the adjudicator.
That's important, yeah.
Yeah. It was where the farmers brought their sheep to mill around there. But I know what it was.
Yeah.
It was a cloth market. Materials.
Incorrect.
That's what it was. What was it then?
Big is a form of barley. that was sold there.
Barley?
Yeah.
They didn't have any barley in the northeast.
What do you mean haven't got any barley?
They haven't got conditions to grow barley. Must have imported it from Scandinavia or something.
Well, it was sold
Load
there.
of rubbish question,
It
that
may
was.
well have been.
You're the rubbish question.
Question number 8. This is
Yeah,
a good one for
yeah,
you, because
yeah.
it's about Coronation Street. Which Coronation Street legend was thrown from a Gateshead car park roof in Get Carter?
Oh, in Get Carter?
Yeah.
A legend from Coronation Street. Coronation Street legend, you say?
Yeah.
From Michael Caine played Carter in Get Carter, and who could it have been? Let me think. It wasn't a female. I know that for sure. It wasn't a female. It was a male.
That's true.
It was a male. So a male legend from Coronation. It wasn't Ken Barlow. That's for certain. Definitely wasn't Ken Barlow. I wonder if it was Len Fairclough. Could have been Len Fairclough.
Is that your answer?
Let me just think. Could have been Len Fairclough. Could have been in that era. I'd say Len Fairclough.
Incorrect.
Oh, no. Porky.
It was Alf Roberts.
Oh, Alf Roberts. He was the mayor.
Yeah. Question number 9. You got 1.5 out of 8 so far.
Yes,
Question number 9. Before reverting to being the Tyne Opera House, the building was used as a cinema for adult films. What was it called during this time?
I don't think they want to be reminded of that part of their history, do they?
Well, I don't think they mind. I don't think they mind.
Yeah. And what was the question again?
What was the building called when it was used as a cinema?
It was called the Roxy.
Incorrect.
Porky.
No. It was the Stoll.
No. The what?
The Stoll, S-T-O-L-L.
How was I supposed to know that?
Well, you've been there.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't say, oh, by the way, we used
Apparently
to show porno
all...
films when we were called the Stoll.
Apparently it's written all over the building.
It's not written all over the building.
You
I've
just
been to
didn't
this
see
building.
It.
No.
1.5 out of 9.
Rubbish.
Final question. Can you make it 2.5 out of 10? Which famous guitarist used to busk on Chillingham Road in Newcastle?
Chillingham Road, Newcastle. Famous guitarist. That would be. Now, was this guy a guitarist or was he a singer-songwriter?
He was a guitarist and a singer-songwriter, and it was back in the kind of, I would say, probably late 60s.
Late 60s. That would be. See, I was going to say Sting, just thinking aloud, but that's too contemporary. It's too recent. You see what I mean? Too recent. So
I couldn't possibly comment.
Let me just think. Gordon Sumner was Sting. Now, do I know another Geordie guitarist apart from? Oh, I tell you, no. I was going to say Crocodile Shoes guy, but he was an actor, really. Right, I'm going to have to say it was somebody from the Animals. So that would no, he used to play the organ, didn't he, Alan Price? My name is Little Alan Price.
You haven't got a lot of time for this.
Georgie Fame was not. He wasn't a Geordie. Okay, it was Sting.
Sting. Incorrect.
Oh, no,
it was Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix wasn't a Geordie.
No, I didn't say he was a Geordie. I just said he used to busk there.
Goodness gracious.
Because his manager, Chaz Chandler, who was the bass player of the Animals,
he was an American.
brought him to his house. But he brought him to his house and he used to busk in Newcastle.
Rubbish questions,
so I'm
honestly.
afraid you've got the grand total of 1.5.
Well,
Peter Reid said you get 2 out of 10. He was actually over generous. 1.5 out of 10.
I know. That's a disappointing.
That is terrible.
Disappointing
isn't it? Particularly since you're going to have to go up there and give an account of yourself.
Set of questions.
On
Honestly, some ridiculous questions.
One of the worst. But they were set, I'm told, by an absolute Newcastle expert.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. An expert in what? Like I don't know.
Newcastle folklore.
I don't know.
Terribly sorry. 1.5 out of 10. Very poor. Very poor indeed. This is Talk Sport.
And Mike Graham is not gerrymandering the questions. I think you will get 2 out of 10 tonight.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
Talk Sport.
Power to the people, right on.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and of course the man of the people is sitting right next to me. But there's some early reaction to your poor performance on the quiz.
Really?
Geordie Jeff says Porky obviously needs a refresher course on Newcastle. Somebody's going to have to knock some sense into him.
What?
And here's one from Dazza, who says, I said 2 out of 10. I was overstating his specialist knowledge of the North East. Porky the plank. And JPK says, disgraceful for a Geordie file, planning to retire there. And William says, Alan Kennedy's a Mackham. Anything but a Geordie. Porky, you plank.
Who is?
Yeah, Alan Kennedy.
Alan Kennedy, oh my God.
Although in fairness, the question did say from the North East.
Yeah, it did, yeah. I've got one here. It's from Ian. He says, disgrace Porky, fog on the mind, not on the time.
Yeah.
Have another drink. And Roy says, that was absolutely pitiful. Expert on Newcastle, my ass. Embarrassing result, says Roy.
I think it might have been your worst result ever, actually, 1.5 out of 10.
I could do with a bit of support here, fellas. Is it? Have you read out Dazzers? I said 2 out of 10. I was overstating his specialist knowledge College of the North. Oh,
I've just read that one out.
Jordan filed planning to retire there. Disgraceful. Yeah, oh well. Look, I'm sorry, folks, you know, I mean, I maybe had a bit of a mental block there. Listen, that song we just played,
Power to the People, yeah.
That was one of the worst John Lennon songs I ever heard. And I don't say that very often.
You never say that?
I never say that, but I just
I thought he was a genius. Surely a genius can't produce a terrible
genius.
song.
No, it was during his period when he was going to, like, you know, be all things to all people, power to the people. I don't know what that means. Anyway, that's not the point.
Well, it was more about the message than it was about the music, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it was, yeah.
Kind of chanting.
Now, did you realise, and this has crept up upon us, I mean, you know, Wales have got their devolved parliament.
They have.
Scotland have got their devolved parliament. Northern Ireland's got their devolved parliament. Cornwall are going that way. You won't believe it. The government have given Cornwall some powers.
Have they?
Cornwall will today become, right, the first county to receive new powers from Whitehall in the next phase of English devolution. The council, led by independents and Liberal Democrats...
Democrats? Maybe that's the answer for the Liberal Democrats to make a comeback, to start calling themselves something different.
Democrats. Will be given responsibility for regional investment and countrywide bus services and franchises and have a greater say in health and social care. Many people in the county have called for autonomy since the Scottish referendum.
So what, they're giving them their own buses?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Is that the first step then?
And some say over healthcare. Now, this is outrageous.
Some say over healthcare?
Yeah.
What does that mean, though?
Well, it says here, bus service and franchises and have a greater say in health and social care.
I heard what you said, but what does it mean?
Well,
because,
I don't know.
I mean, we saw that story the other day about how doctors are now going to be told to work at the weekends.
I tell you what it means.
Yeah, what does it mean?
It means that down in Cornwall, somebody who wants to feel semi-important will be able to advertise...
Do you mean an elected official?
No, a probably non-elected official sent down from Whitehall or something like that, or some guy who's the chief executive of Cornwall County Council will be able to employ another 200 or 300 people to do jobs that don't need doing.
Yes, that may be the problem.
I'm telling you.
But they're surely not going to give actual, their own sort of devolved parliament to Cornwall.
Apparently they are.
That sounds mad.
It's another layer of government once again. I mean, don't you remember the rotund chap who used to be the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott?
John Prescott, yeah. Two Jags.
Two Jags. He had a mission throughout his life to have regional parliaments set up all over England.
He tried to get one in Newcastle, didn't he?
He tried to get one in North East, he tried to get one in East Anglia. They were both voted down by the people. But through the back door, the quangos that were set up over the last 20 years, people who invent jobs for themselves by setting up a quango, have decided to go ahead with it anyway, against the wish of the people.
But what would be the point of doing it in Cornwall? I mean, Cornwall, for all of its, image and all of its sort of, remoteness, if you like. Yeah. I mean, it's filled part of the year, or most of the year, with tourists, isn't it? I mean, people who actually go there on holiday.
Listen, nothing ever happens in Cornwall or Devon.
Well, that's not true to say.
Nothing ever happens in Cornwall or Devon. Nothing ever happens in Cornwall. The only thing that happens in Cornwall is that tourists go there.
Yeah.
So why don't they concentrate on building up a magnificent tourist industry?
Which I think they do.
Which they do. And do you know one of my favourite programmes?
Very hard place to get to as well.
Yeah, it is a very hard place to get to. They should build a few decent roads down there.
They should build a few decent roads, yeah.
So one of my favourite TV shows, which I might put into the TV review next week because of this, right, because it's upset me so much, is Wycliffe. Because Wycliffe is about a detective in Cornwall.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And you see crashing waves over rocks and all this kind of stuff. Right. And then he's driving down these country lanes, all these shut-down tin mines. Yeah. Poldark was filmed in Cornwall.
Poldark was filmed down there, yeah.
And what I'm saying is Cornwall is great as it is.
It is.
Why does it want to become political?
And also,
nothing happens in Cornwall.
Well,
you don't need a parliament in Cornwall.
Well, it sounds
you
like
don't need one.
Well, hang on. Calm down. It looks like they're only putting them in charge of the buses, though, doesn't it?
Well, that's too much.
Why?
Why do you need regional controlling?
They could be in charge of their own buses.
You know what'll happen next?
What?
Places like
Maybe
Yorkshire.
They'll put a toll gate up or something like that.
Yeah, places like Yorkshire will say, well, we want self-rule as well. And Lancashire wants self-rule, and Kent will want self-rule, and Hampshire will want self-rule. It's outrageous.
All of which
we're either one United Kingdom or we're not, and the counties are the only thing we've got left in England.
Why are you shaking your arms around like some demented maniac?
Because I just think it's outrageous.
Did you notice yesterday, by the way, the MPs gave themselves a 10% pay rise?
Yes.
That was a great idea, wasn't it? I mean, just when you thought that actually people really didn't like MPs and couldn't dislike them anymore, they decide, but don't worry, because it's coming from money that we've already saved.
And I think
surely the point of saving the money in the first place is to then keep saving it, as opposed to spending it.
I think it was introduced on the same day as health workers got a 1% pay rise, by the way. And some health workers are actually very good at what they do, nurses and people like that.
Most of them are, actually.
No, they're not. No, the pen pushers are.
No, I'm not talking about those people.
I'm talking about the frontline people, the doctors and the nurses.
I don't think you need to worry about Cornwall too much, though, because, I don't think you've probably been to Cornwall for many a year. When was the last time you were in Cornwall?
Probably 80 years ago.
80?
No, 8 years ago. 8 years ago. 8 years ago.
And what were you doing there?
I went with my sisters for a break. It's the first time we'd got together as siblings for like 20 years.
Oh, right.
So we said, let's go down and spend a few days in Cornwall. And
did they make you sit in the middle seat in the car?
Well, no, because I was driving the Jag, and I took my two sisters with me, and we stayed in a lovely hotel in St Ives, and it was beautiful. I love Cornwall, and I love the mystique of Cornwall, and I love the customs and the closed down tin mines and the clotted cream and everything about it. But why do they want to get political? I just don't get it.
Well,
anyway,
David Cameron goes there all the time. Maybe something to do with him. Maybe he's quite happy to have them do it. I don't think it's going to end up like being a sort of Scottish independence type scenario.
I just think why do we need more politicians in this country? We need less. I mean, they're cutting down the number of politicians in Parliament, thank God.
Well, they're meant to be, but I was watching a show just the other week, and one of the guys was in from the House of Lords, and he said, the problem is, yes, they're cutting back on MPs, but actually there's something like 300 or 400 more members of the House of Lords than there were about 4 years ago.
Do you know, there are so many members of the House of Lords now, you'd need a building twice the size if they all came to one sitting.
Right.
It's ludicrous.
I know.
And do you know what happens? Every time a government comes in, they say, right, now what's the balance of power in the House of Lords? Oh, I see, it's them. Well, in that case, we'll create another 200 to give us the balance. And then the next government comes in and says, oh, no, we'll have another 200. Right. It's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
It is ludicrous. So and they're all wastrels
anyway.
They
cut like 50 MPs out of the House of out of the House of Commons, it make no difference.
No difference at all. Now, I want to talk to you about... we talk about food all the time because,
somebody suggested the other day we should do a cookbook. I think it's a good idea.
Well, yeah, but I sent you an amendment to one of your pictures this week. You sent a picture out of some of the food that you cooked, right? And what did I say on it? What did I say?
I can't remember. It was a pasta dish, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And I
you
said,
didn't understand what I'd called it.
No. What I said was, you won't be getting this up in Newcastle, son. You'll be getting like stotty cake. You know what I mean? Your face looks like a stotty cake.
What is
actually.
stotty cake?
Stotty cake is like a pastry bun, so to speak. Okay.
Right. So is it sweet or savoury then?
It's kind of savoury.
Is it?
It totally looks like potato cake.
Potato cake.
Yeah, but it's stotty cake.
I don't know what that is either.
Yeah.
What's potato cake?
Well, it's a cake made of potato, isn't it?
A cake made of potato?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Why would you make a cake out of potato?
Well, because you do, because you fry it in a pan and you eat it with your sausage and beans.
So is it a bit like a sort of a hash brown, you mean? That kind of thing?
Not really, it's more mushy. More mushy than a hash brown.
Mushy.
Yeah, hash brown's crispy on the outside. This is more mushy. Right. But no, your face resembles a stotty cake.
Does it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
That's very kind of you.
Because it's flabby and sort of, gruesome.
And what do you eat these stotties with? Do you put something on them? Do you eat them on their own? Do you have them with breakfast? What do you have?
You can eat it with your bacon and your sausage.
Yeah, okay.
It's very nice. Now then,
that depends on whether you've booked a hotel that actually includes breakfast. We don't have another unseemly row like you had the last time up in Manchester, where you were ranting and raving at them.
Well, they were trying to charge me in Manchester £17 for breakfast.
You remember the quote, don't you, from the people downstairs? We tried to give Mr. Parry a free breakfast, but he wouldn't stop yelling at us.
They didn't. Honestly, if they ever put that in writing and told anybody that, I would sue them. They never, ever offered me a free breakfast.
Well, that's what they keep telling us.
I went back to the reception and said, I'm not paying £17 for breakfast. It was £12 last night. They said, yeah, you had to pre-order it at £12. It's $17 this morning.
So how much is the breakfast at this place you booked us into then?
I have no idea. Because,
is it included?
I would imagine so.
Okay.
I would imagine so.
Well, we'll look forward to having some stotty cake then with all of that.
Yeah, indeed. Now then, what I wanted to talk to you about was I found out something which you don't know.
Yeah.
You were asking me the other day about what do I eat, and you did mention what was that stuff that you asked me if I ate? What's the stuff with like bits of onion and carrot and all sliced and put together?
What? Bits of onion and carrot all sliced and put together?
Yeah, like people eat it in salads and things. What's it called?
I've no idea what you're talking about. Onions and carrot?
Yeah, it's,
You're talking about coleslaw?
Coleslaw.
Hasn't got onion in it?
Hasn't it?
No.
I thought it had.
No.
Anyway, coleslaw. Do you know what they do in Belgium?
What do they do in Belgium?
In Belgium, like we have fish and chip stalls, like at seasides and all that. In Belgium, they have stalls where... What's it called again?
Coleslaw.
Where they have coleslaw.
How can you not remember the name of coleslaw?
Yeah. They have. You get a bowl of coleslaw. Yeah. Well, like a plastic, plastic
container
full of coleslaw with a bag of chips, and you dip your chips into your coleslaw and stuff it in your mouth.
Well, they like dipping chips in mayonnaise, don't they? There, do you not do that?
Yeah, mayonnaise.
Chips and mayonnaise is very nice, actually.
No, what they do is you get the coleslaw.
Yeah.
And then you put the mayonnaise on the coleslaw.
Right.
And then you dip your chips in the coleslaw and mayonnaise and stuff it in your gob. I mean, I can't think of anything more repulsive.
Really?
Oh, it's disgusting.
But that's one of the things that is great about travelling into different parts of Europe and different parts of the world, because you try what it is that they eat.
Yeah, but anyway, what's happened is there's a revolution going on in Belgium now.
Yeah.
I'm very up on
what sort of revolution?
Continental foods. Well, Belgium is, I'm reading this from a release from the Belgian government, will overhaul a 60-year-old...
Did you get this as a sort of a secret project from them then?
No. I was keeping my eye on developments in the culinary world.
I had no idea you had connections
throughout
with
Europe.
The Belgian government.
I do.
Extraordinary.
Right. Belgium will overhaul a 60-year-old law that defines mayonnaise to prevent foreign products capitalising on a more health-conscious approach to the national dish of double-fried chips.
So what?
Well, what I'm saying is...
Well, they're trying to stop, like, Hellman's mayonnaise from being sold in Belgium.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So you can only get, like, genuine Belgian mayonnaise.
Yeah. Now, this dish I'm talking about is called Free mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah.
And that's written in
chips
Belgian.
and mayonnaise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think so.
And this is written in Belgian. Free mayonnaise,
Belgian.
chips with mayonnaise,
Really?
is Belgium's most popular street food. Millions of portions served every day from the 4,000-plus chip stands in Belgium.
Wow.
4,000. And they call them Free or Friet. And all Belgians delight in eating their twice-fried chips. Why do you fry chips twice?
Well, I suppose so. They're more crispy on the outside and softer on the inside.
Which must be made of Binchy potatoes, spelt Bintje, and are often cooked in beef or even horse dripping.
Really?
Yeah. However, the Belgians' traditional delicacies, chips, chocolate, mussels and strong beer, remain unchanged by the new laws being introduced by the Belgian
government.
Chocolate
mussels? Chocolate mussels?
No.
You mean chocolate like it's a separate thing?
Yeah, chips, chocolate,
right.
mussels,
right.
and strong beer. And Dutch mayonnaise...
It's amazing how you find this stuff out.
Dutch mayonnaise now has to have, like, more health things in
Dutch
it. Lighter product, yeah.
Well, what's Dutch mayonnaise? How's that different?
I don't know. Oh, Spanish and Dutch mayonnaise, which is imported, is not as light, so they're trying to make it...
Why would anybody care about this
hang
at
on,
all?
Hang on.
I mean, it's not about this country. It's about Belgium.
Just shut up for a minute.
It's about coleslaw in Belgium.
In future,
thinking?
Mayonnaise in Belgium can only have 65% of fat, OK?
Really?
So that's what I wanted to tell you about.
Hold the front page.
That's what I want to tell you about, OK? That's
no
what you
wonder
need to know.
you were finally kicked out as the news editor of the Daily Express.
What are you on about?
You think that's a story?
Are you mad? Are you mad?
Who cares?
Well, everybody cares. The whole of the continent cares, OK? It's no longer tenable. It's no longer a tenable situation.
Another campaign coming up for Belgian mayonnaise.
Absolutely.
Then.
Yeah.
And you don't even like coleslaw.
No, I don't. I hate coleslaw.
Right.
That's why it amazes me that people go around stuffing their chips into coleslaw and stuffing it into their mouth. Imagine ruining your chips with coleslaw. And mayonnaise is ghastly. Ugh. Hate mayonnaise.
Mind absolutely boggles.
Do you know what mayonnaise goes into? Mayonnaise goes into...
time.
You know, like I like tin salad because tin salmon. Tin salmon's the best salmon, right? Do you know what people do?
Tin salmon's the best salmon.
Tin salmon is the best salmon. It's the freshest salmon you can get.
What about fresh salmon?
Well, yeah. Well, apart from that, and believe it or not, people
it's 4 o'clock, you know.
People get tin salmon. They chuck it into a glass bowl, and then they pour
talking.
mayonnaise all over it and stir it up so that you weaken the salmon when you put it in sandwiches. It's a con trick.
Is it?
I don't like mayonnaise in my salmon.
Really? Finished.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV. Did you see that story about the sharks invading Sussex, by the way?
No, what's that?
You haven't seen it. It's on the front page of the Mirror. There was like 50 sharks invaded West Sussex earlier on today.
What are you on about?
Well, have a look at the front page of the Daily Mirror.
Yeah, but I mean, why...
They're not like killer sharks. They're not the kind that are going to eat people, but they are actually very, very large. Some of them grow as big as 5 foot 3 inches long, right?
Were they on land or what?
Well, no, they were not on land. What do you think? They're going to, like, wander out of the sea? They don't walk. They're sharks.
OK, when did you last see a whale that looked like Jumbo the elephant?
Well, they don't have external ears, do
That's
they?
what I'm
But
saying.
They still have
That's
ears.
what I'm saying. They don't have ears.
Well, they don't have ears that are not actually sticking out.
No, they have physical things in their body from which they can detect
hearing
sound.
devices?
Hearing devices.
Which are not ears.
Of course they're not ears.
Are you sure about that?
Of course I'm sure about
these
that.
people seem to know
when
an
did you
awful lot
last
more
see
about
a whale that looked like a rabbit, that looked like Bugs Bunny?
Well, whales don't have ears like that.
Yeah,
they don't have external
That's
ears.
exactly what I'm saying.
But they
to
have
you.
the ability to hear, obviously.
But I'm not going to be roundly mocked by somebody who sends in a tweet or a text or something saying, whales...
TC says, please sort out your scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
or rather lack of it.
My scientific knowledge is absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Everything that I've been told in those two texts, I have already briefed the audience about. I need no corrective, info from the very, very welcome audience.
Well, educated and welcome audience.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a quiz on sharks down the road and see how well you do on that.
There's not enough about sharks to be able to do a quiz of 10 questions.
Not enough about sharks.
No.
One of the greatest greatest predators known to man.
Yeah, well, that's about it. And when you say the sense of smell and all this kind of stuff, they don't have a great sense of smell.
Sharks?
No.
Of course they do. They can smell blood from, like, hundreds of miles away.
I was about to say that's where the expression came from. I can smell blood. That's the only thing a shark can smell is blood.
Well,
can't smell anything else.
That's all they need to smell.
A shark couldn't say, oh, that passing oil tanker's just disgorged 120 litres of oil, because they can't smell oil. They can only smell blood.
How do you know that?
I know that because I've studied the shark intelligentsia.
Manual?
Well, not the shark manual, but you know what I'm saying. I know these things. I pick these things up in life because I tell you where I learned that.
So, no, you can't tell me anymore.
No, I learned that in Australia. I learned that in Australia from a guy who was a shark expert who used to go swimming with sharks.
Did he?
Yeah, not in a cage. He just used to go swimming with them. He used to tickle them.
Is he still
alive?
alive?
To tickle the shark. Yeah, still got all his legs and hands. How Porky